In the heart of Virginia, there's a stretch of pavement that has ingrained itself in American racing history. Built in 1957 with just a bulldozer and a plot of land, Virginia International Raceway has become an icon. Over the years since its reopening in 2000, it has hosted IMSA, the American Le Mans Series, NASCAR, SCCA, and Champ Car races. Legends have raced there, including Roger Penske, Mark Donohue, Richard Petty, Hurley Haywood, Dan Gurney, and more. Between turns 11 and 12 stood a defying feature, an old oak tree. This tree stood untouched, shading the south end of the course for decades. For some, oak tree became a symbol of VIR and a reminder of how road courses used to be built. They used to be built with the lay of the land, following each contour and moving around obstacles, not through them. Earth may have been moved, but not tarnished. Oak tree was a lasting memory of when tracks were not just built, they came to be, like the tree. Although oak tree no longer stands, nor does hog pen, turn 17, the corners both still bear the name of what used to exist. And the track stays unchanged the way it was meant to be, with the lay of the land, for the land. Maybe that's why Paul Newman called it heaven on earth.
We are 5 rounds into the 2020 Radenso Sports Car Challenge, and our next round takes us to the twists and turns of Virginia International Raceway. Welcome to SimTV. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined by Tom O'Gorman for the 5th round of the season. We've traversed the country from Austin, Texas to Watkins Glen, New York, across the border in Bowmanville, Ontario, back down to the American South in Brazelton, Georgia, and now we head slightly up north to Virginia International Raceway, a 17-turn road course that is one of the classic American racetracks. Tom, welcome back to SimTV for the 5th round of the season. Slightly smaller field sizes tonight, but we've seen some incredible racing, especially last round at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And we try round number 5 again. We'll see if this one can go just as smooth as last week.
Thrilled to be here, Kyle. And you say it's a little bit smaller field size, but it's actually all the heavy hitters are here. And it's going to be some awesome racing from one of the greats. I think when you look at the schedule of the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, it's really the cream of the crop of racetracks in North America. We couldn't have done any better. Plus, one of the favorites from Europe coming up soon. So just thrilled to be here again.
Let's take a look at our track map for tonight's event. I mentioned it was a 17-turn course. Well, it's every little bit of that, and it's a spectacular track with lots of elevation changes, of course. The iRacing version still has the oak tree up at turns 11 and 12. Here's a look. 3.27 miles here, Tom. You're familiar with this racetrack. You won here in 2018 in Michelin Pilot Challenge. Walk me through a lap of VIR.
Sure. Coming down into turn 1, and for me, VIR really boils down to 3 main straightaways. Down into turn number 1, the run up through the S's, which is near as makes no difference a straightaway in a car like the Caymans and TCR cars we see tonight, and then the long straightaway down to roller coaster. That's where all of the lap is made or broken. But looking back at the beginning of the lap, turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, NASCAR Bend at turn 3, and the Snake turns 4, 5, and 6, the lower S's. You can really ruin the lap there by kind of getting behind in that really rhythmic section, but it is not where the speed comes. Then the long straightaway up towards the S is another place where you can make mistakes but not really gain any time. South Bend is a make or break for sure at turn 10, and then that iconic Oak Tree corner at turn 12. Another long run down the back straight to roller coaster, a great passing opportunity in both classes tonight, and then the really challenging run down from roller coaster to hog pen through turn 17 and back onto the front straight.
And it's a 3.27-mile racetrack. We're going to get to race on it for 4 races tonight, 2 for GS, our Grand Sport category, and 2 with TCR. Let's have a look at our vehicles for this evening here, Tom. The first category that's up tonight, we're going to race it twice, the Grand Sport cars. These are GT4 class cars, all homologated. It'll just be the Cayman GT4 tonight, the 718. These cars feature about 400 to 450 horsepower. The Cayman a little bit more on the lighter end of that. Just over 3,000 pounds. They're a lot heavier than the TCR machines we're about to see here in a minute, but not a lot of downforce, at least from the rear end. But you see, they're pretty heavy there, Tom. So these cars are a little bit of a chungus around the racetrack here. But the TCR car, you're intimately familiar with this. You won in this car at this track. Tell me about the touring car.
It's a much different car because you're starting with a lower performance base with the Audi RS3 TCR and all TCR cars. They're all front wheel drive, making around 300, 350 horsepower, and then much more heavily reliant on the modifications and specifically the aerodynamics that's put onto these cars. If you really look at them, they're not that extreme looking in the grand scheme of motorsports and time attack and hill climbs and all that stuff, but they're extremely effective for what they are, and they make speed in very different ways from the less modified but better platform overall in the Cayman.
So qualifying is underway right now, and we're going to head over there in just a second. About 4 minutes left, and we've got some of our heavy hitters with us again this week. Ken Alseal, the number 23, Tom. He's probably going to be the one to beat. He's done probably hundreds of practice laps around here in the recent couple of weeks. He's raced his car here quite a bit. Right now on top of the board with a 155.472. He's probably my pick to win both races tonight.
That was going to be one of my keys to tonight is we went through this really interesting phase of all of the series that SimTV broadcasts, and a number of these drivers kind of blur the lines between which series they race in, and all of those series kind of had this interesting coming together where they were all running at VIR in the same week and a half, and Ken Alseal was racing in just about every single one of them, and like you said, he's probably done hundreds of practice laps, and that was not necessarily because he was practicing for this race tonight, but just kind of built into the fact that he's raced at this track in this car at least 3 times in the last 2 weeks or so. So he's heavily familiar with this. A bunch of the drivers actually that you see on the left side there on the tower are all in that boat. So we've got a lot of drivers that are really extra practiced for VIR. There's one who's not really in that same vein. This is Dan Newman, and he's actually not really in the same kind of category as guys that are racing in SimTV broadcast series that have kind of the same pool of drivers in them a lot of times. He's been towards the front in most of the races that we've seen this season, but has yet to podium and has yet to really come through with that success that we've expected to see from him. He's a pro Forza driver, extremely fast in iRacing as well, and I think he's been one of the other drivers that's going to be fun to watch this week, as he's only now 4/10 off of Ken Alseal.
So Dan Newman right now is in second place on the timing and scoring, and with about 3 minutes left in qualifying. I'm not expecting qualifying to be that important tonight because our field is a little bit smaller than usual. However, passing is pretty tricky around here. We already went over a couple of our passing zones, one of them down into turn 1, the other down into roller coaster. But this racetrack, the braking zones are in such high-speed areas that there's a lot of risk, especially passing to a place like roller coaster. We've seen that be a trouble spot in some of the other races we've done here recently.
And right now we're watching Chris Lapras come to that point on the track. On the right side here, you've got braking markers down, and you're braking past the number 1, right about there. And this is the blind entry into the roller coaster, and it's not quite straight, and you're not really noticing that it's bent when you're by yourself. But then when you put 2 cars side by side there, it's like a 50-50 shot on if you're both going to get out of the other side. And then you have this really challenging run down through Hogpen, bottom the car out. The best way to really get by somebody here is to get a run on them down the front straight and clear them before turn 1, because like you said, it's really challenging in these really kind of unique braking zones to get the pass done there.
Kurt Crum, another driver we've seen up towards the front in recent weeks, and he'll take his number 87 Bombshell Racing team car up to 6th in qualifying. Paul Darling in the 155, like one of the drivers you mentioned earlier, Ken Alseal, been doing a lot of racing here in this car at this track, and he's very familiar with this place, so I imagine Paul Darling will be certainly on the podium in at least one race tonight. He's also a race winner several times this season at Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Think back to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park a couple weeks into the season. We know he's capable of winning, and I think he'll be just as capable tonight.
And Paul's fun to watch because he seems to be really comfortable in controlling the pace from the front of these races, whereas other drivers maybe are better at working their way up towards the front and they may not make the pass until the last lap. Paul has a knack for controlling the race from the lead, and he did it for both races at CTMP. He did it for one of the races last week at Road Atlanta. So he kind of has the handle on when he has the pace, he'll just be at the front and he's going to stay there. He's really hard to pass.
Well, let down through roller coaster into 16-17 and round out here with Hog Pen, a little bit loose at the exit of the corner, but this time through a 45.0 first sector, 41.1 sector 2 across the line. This should be a pretty decent lap. He has to beat a 55.01, 55.3. That will not improve his time. Newman has improved to a 155.062. That is 52 thousandths of a second off of Ken Alseal's best time. It's amazingly close right at the top of the board here.
That's just a couple pixels somewhere on this track, and he's got another chance at it. These guys get 4 laps and 10 minutes to complete them, which is really pushing the limit of how many laps you can get done at VIR. It's a long lap here, and a lot of it is spent flat out down those straightaways, and I kind of wanted to touch on that one more time. To me, especially, my sim racing friends will know I don't necessarily have the highest opinion of VIR as a race track because it does favor the top speed so much, but these are spec races. These cars are all either the Cayman or all the TCR, and that removes that aspect of VIR, and it makes it really fun to race because draft is so important. What I missed? Dan Newman ran a 154.9, and I don't think it counted, unfortunately, because he was just shy of getting to the line before the session transition. And we'll have to see when they line up here in just a second here, Tom. But that was close. Had he been a half a second quicker, he might have had it. Looks like Ken Alseal will be on pole here in just a moment. And we'll run down your starting lineup. Plenty of time to go around here and go through our starting lineup. But let's take a look at the weather here this afternoon. High noon here, but this track surface, Tom, this place gets hot. 71 ambient is the air temperature today. We're going to see track surface temps rise into the mid 115s, maybe even towards 120. It's going to be hot out there and get very slick. And that's playing right back to what I was just talking about. There are sections of this track that do not make the lap time around here, but they can absolutely ruin it. The lower S's, the upper S's in the entry to South Bend, the run down from roller coaster to Hog Pen, those sections of this track, they're not going to make you better than everybody somewhere, but they are so easy to make a mistake, especially in this Cayman, which is not particularly downforce driven, and it is just kind of a nice handling, at sometimes floaty, at sometimes not forgiving platform. It's going to be really challenging to get around here. If you just joined us, my name's Kyle Heyer here with Tom O'Gorman for SimTV, the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, round number 5. We want to thank a couple of our sponsors for making this series possible, and actually we're on a new location tonight. If you're watching on the Radenso Facebook page, make sure to drop a like if you're new to the page, and if you're new to SimTV, hopping over to YouTube, type in SimTV, it'll take you right there, and you can watch it on YouTube as well. Make sure you subscribe for more action. Of course, Radenso has allowed us the opportunity to broadcast this series. Radenso is known for having the best false alert filtering, so you get less annoying false alerts caused by blind spot monitoring cars driving around you, because Radenso Radar makes windshield and hidden radar detectors for your car, Tom. So if you're speeding back from Chicago, put yourself a Radenso piece of equipment inside your windshield, you'll be good to go. So thanks to Radenso for giving us the opportunity to broadcast, as well as Lazy Rocket, high quality custom decals at a low cost. So great sponsors being a part of this program here. With 10-lap race will take us about 19 minutes from start to finish. Let's run through the starting lineup here, Tomo. On the front row tonight, it's going to be Ken Alseal, the number 23 out of Pennsylvania. And on the outside, Dan Newman from New Jersey in his pink number 48. On the second row, Paul Darling and Kirk Crum, 2 drivers to watch for sure, starting 3rd and 4th. In row number 3, Christopher Lapras in the number 183 car. He'll roll off in 5th from New Jersey. Riley Thompson in his number 56 SimCity Sports Car rolls off in 6th. A couple of drivers who have had really good runs this season. Evan Schickel and Zach Buchanan will start on the 4th row side by side. Francois Brou in the 69 starts 9th. Talas Arik in the number 163 starts 10th tonight in his silver car. And there's Mark Labance and Jackson Robillard starting side by side in the 92 car and the 98 car. They've started side by side before. Lex Kurchek in the 67 starts 13th out of New York. Anthony Montello in the Lazy Rocket car, he starts 14th. Here's that beautiful maroon car just leaving frame, and then on the final row in the race, Alex Barroso not getting a clean lap in qualifying. He's going to be fun to watch charge alongside Tyler Jones, looks like. So the rest of the grid looks like Charles Boley and Rob Gagliardo will not make the race. Gagliardo did join, but didn't make the grid. So we head up through the lower S's here into the upper S's, and you describe this as pretty much a straightaway. In this car, it's probably going to be a slight lift on lap 1, maybe, Tom, but then it's pretty much full throttle here for the rest of the race. Yeah, and that's another thing we haven't talked about yet is these cars, as always, have a very challenging dynamic on cold tires. They're excessively slippery on the cold dynamic, or on the cold model, I should say. So the first lap and a half are really, really challenging. You're going to see a lot of these drivers weaving around more than normal, a lot of acceleration and braking right there for Lapras. So if you don't do a good enough job getting the tires up to heat on this warm-up lap, you're definitely going to have to lift through the S's on the first lap. But even still, when you get to the final bit of the S's up into that big crest and then onto the brakes for South Bend, that's good in some cars, and when we get to the TCR car, it's not as going to be a big a factor. But in these cars, it's so challenging to get right because they don't have a ton of downforce. They move around a lot in that section of track at that amount of speed, and it's really easy to just make a simple mistake there.
You're seeing the famous oak tree at the exit of turn number 12. This tree fell in 2013 due to weather, has not been replaced due to safety regulations, Tom, but it is a gorgeous looking oak tree down there that we will always have memorialized in the iRacing service, and we'll get to drive under the shade of it tonight, although the shadow is pretty much straight down as it's high noon here in Virginia as we head down the back straightaway, getting lined up for the start. Seal on pole in the 23, and Dan Newman was as quick as him in qualifying, actually went a hair quicker on his final lap that didn't end up counting. So we'll see if he can keep Ken honest tonight. It's going to be difficult, but I think Ken was the winner here, the DC Region Enduro a few weeks ago, was he not?
He was, and I think he was the pole sitter for the SCCA Super Tour race here before, or he either was pole sitter or won, I'm not sure.
Been a lot of racing here at VIR. I don't think anybody's sure of anything anymore.
A ton of laps, yeah.
But down the hill to begin our first of 4 races tonight. We'll have 2 for GS, 2 for TCR. You're watching SimTV Radenso Sports Car Challenge from Virginia International Raceway. Pace car works its way through Hog Pen. Seal and Newman line up on the front row. Crum and Darling on row number 2. Flagger's got the green flag in hand. As soon as he waves it, we'll be racing in Radenso Sports Car Challenge round number 5. Green flag about to wave. Remember the new rules from last week. Cannot deviate from the line of the car in front of you. And we're racing at Virginia International Raceway.
And Dan Newman actually did cross that line, but he didn't gain position on the cars next to him, so he may be okay with that. Now they start to fan out into the braking zone, and Newman's trying the outside, a big bump in the middle of this track, a turn, track out, and now Labance gets into the back of...
I think that was Robillard that he touched there, or Robillard got in the back of him, but either way, they've had a bit of an off as we head through NASCAR Bend, turn number 3. Seal leads, Newman slots into second, third place Darling, and everyone else seems to have made it through just fine. Rob Gagliardo did start from pit lane, so he'll at least have a chance to gain some spots later in this race.
Yeah, not too far back, but look, everybody's single file all the way through the field now at the front, and the front, call it 8 or so, down to Buchanan in 8th, are all still connected, nice, close in touch, and Barroso just left your frame. He's already up about 5 spots from the back row.
Alex Barroso started this race in 15th. He's up to 11th already as they climb the S's. Whoa, Schickel off, and so is Buchanan as they head up the hill for the first time. Cold tires claiming a couple drivers early. It looks like they'll get it back on track there, Tom, but that's a big slip, and Schickel comes to a stop.
I think that's what we were talking about with the cold tires. If you don't lift, they just get so floaty through this section. I think they both got away with it without any body contact. Buchanan's car is certainly clean. Looks like Brew running a little bit wide, and Barroso's going to gain, Sadiq, I'm sorry, gets another position by Barroso.
So they're going to
come back at it.
They're going to fight back on the back straightaway. That's Zach Buchanan trying to gain some spots back after his big slip up. Sadiq pulls the driver's right, bit of a block there by Buchanan into the braking zone for the first time for Roller Coaster. Seal's got it. Newman in second. Behind him, sideways is Lapras, and through goes Crum to 5th. Riley Thompson chomping at the bit to grab that spot from Lapras as well.
And that's going to put Lapras back to 5th. I think Darling was still up there somewhere. We didn't see him in frame, so I think Darling's still attached to the back of Newman and Seal at the front. Yes, there he is in the yellow car. Then a little bit of a gap back to Crum, and now Thompson is trying to get his way back around Lapras as well.
So Evan Schickel will call this first race over as we head down through to complete lap number 1 of 10. Seal leads the way. Newman is right there, though, Tom, putting pressure on. I think this is something that Ken Seal might not be used to at this particular track and car combo. So if Newman can keep the pressure on, it could make Ken Seal make a mistake. Now, we haven't seen a lot of mistakes out of Ken, but it's always a possibility, I guess.
No, And watching the body language of the cars right now, Ken looks a little bit more confident in his car right now. He's placing it the places he wants it to be. Nyman's doing a good job to stay there, but maybe taking a little more risks in driving the car that hard this early. So Nyman's job is really to kind of run Ken Hausiel down figuratively, meaning wear him down, make him make a mistake. Hausiel's just got to keep his head down and plug away qualifying laps at this point.
One of the drivers I've been keeping an eye on is ever since you mentioned it, lap number 1 is Alex Barroso. Remember where he started? How about 15th? Well, he's gained half the spots up to 7th place. He is flying right now. He was about 5 seconds off of Hausiel's time last lap because he was dealing with traffic, but he's coming forward. Could easily be a podium car if he continues at this pace here. Just needs to get some clear track and run some good laps.
And Barroso has yet to get a win, but has had some really strong performances. He's got 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s in 8 races. So he's one of the contenders, sits 4th in the championship points right now, but a driver that has yet to take a W. And he's well on his way to potentially setting himself up for success, maybe in even race 2, if he can't get any further up in race 1.
Well, these two have been going at it for about a lap and a half now as they head up to roller coaster. Sadiq moves over slightly onto Buchanan in the braking zone. Buchanan moves to driver's left, going to charge in, but slots in behind Sadiq for 10th. And Buchanan was saying before this race, he finds this place kind of challenging, and I'm kind of inclined to agree with him. There's definitely a lot of straightaway on this racetrack. You can drive it like in 3 distinct straights, like you said, Tom, but there's also some very technical parts like this final sector. I think that's what Buchanan finds difficult, but he's doing a pretty good job so far hanging on after his early slip-up.
Yeah, definitely some challenging places around this track that, like I said, you can ruin your lap there, but that's not where the speed comes from. And that's kind of the challenge with VIR is there's places where you think, oh, once I get that down, I'll have the lap time. No, once you get that down, you're just staying on track, and then it's down to the racecraft of drafting and working with other people down those straightaways, and really gaining position in those braking zones like we talked about.
Riding on board with Buchanan, he's only dropped 2 spots. He's going to try to get one of them back right here in turn number 4. That's going to get real tight, but looks like Sadiq will move over and let him on through, but Buchanan has to run wide behind him. That's Lex Kurchek in the 67. That got really dicey, and here's Robillard in the 98.
Yeah, Sadiq bounced off the curb at turn 5 and almost got into the back of Buchanan, and luckily Buchanan had run the outside just fast enough to clear him, but that was super tight stuff, and that's one of those sections that we were just referencing that's really, really challenging, and turn 4 is a great passing opportunity if you can get a run there. Not a lot of people think about.
So leaders through Oak Tree, Newman still right there as we head down in with the Buchanan, Sadiq, Kurchek, and Robillard fight. This is 4 cars, all for 9th place, and Kurchek putting pressure now on Sadiq. This is a good solid run so far for the 67. He started this race in 13th. He's up 2 spots to P11.
It's a good run. And I was watching the gaps between the drivers at the front as they exited Oak Tree. Ken Hausiel put 2/10 on Dan Newman as they exited Oak Tree on the first bit of that straightaway. And now Newman's going to get it back with the draft, but that just tells me that Hausiel has the pace right now to maintain this little bit of a lead. If he's getting those runs off of those key corners, Hogpen, number 1, turn 1, and the Oak Tree corner, he's going to be able to maintain just enough of a buffer that Newman may not actually be able to get to his bumper, even though he's clinging on right now.
So I've heard turn 12, which is Oak Tree, kind of referred to as very similar to turn 7 at Road Atlanta, and how important it is to get that corner right to carry speed around this track. So is that a place that Newman can really focus right now to try to gain some pace, is focus on that exit?
Yeah, to me, the entire race for Newman boils down to exiting off of Oak Tree, because that's the main passing opportunity here. If you can boil the lap down to am I fast at VIR or not, it's can you get off of Oak Tree fast or not, and that's where if that's a weak point for him, if he's losing those 2/10 somewhere on the track to Ken Hausiel, he's got to fix that problem by the end of this race. And it looks like he's got the pace in the lower S's where we are right now, exiting the snake into the lower S's and up the back the first straightaway towards those main S's. He closed up a little bit, but again, right there, Ken Hausiel's really good off of those tight sequences of corners to get just enough of a buffer down the straightaways that Newman can't do anything with it.
I really want to keep an eye on the sector times here. So Newman's sector 1 was a 44.9, and looks like Ken Hausiel's first sector was also a 44.9, so they're pretty even through there. Now sector 2 is going to be the telling one here, because this is where Oak Tree is, and we're going to know, look at Hausiel gap. You can see it visually right there, how much he gaps Newman on corner exit. We'll know as they head up to roller coaster what the difference really was in terms of time. But I think Newman got a bit better of a run that time through. At least he's going to suck right back up with the draft here, but we're going to know at the sector line what the difference really was.
Yeah, sector 2 ending right there, 41.1 for Ken Hausiel. And right behind him, Dan Newman was a 41.0, so he was a little better that time through, somewhere in sector 2. And now the final run down towards the hog pen where the car does bottom out. It's really, really tough to lead the car in. You have to crest one curb on your left and then bottom the car down into turn number 17. Don't forget about Paul Darling either. He's got, like you said, a bunch of races under his belt here in this car, just like Ken Halseal does, and he's within striking distance if those guys go side by side through a sequence of corners somewhere in the next 5 laps.
Yeah, so for Halseal last time by, it was a 155.181. For Newman, a 155.142. So Newman's picked up a little bit of pace, now right on the heels of that 23 of Ken Halseal. In the meantime, we've had Finidi Dacuna. He went off for a ride, considering his race done. Meanwhile, how about for 8th, Francois Brou, Buchanan, Sadiq, Kuracek, and more all battling for turn 1.
And Francois Brou, I think, may have dropped off the back of a previous battle. This group that's been together, these 4 cars, yeah, he was up a little bit further up the road, and now Buchanan and group have caught him. And this is a 5-car battle for just inside the top number 10. But now Sadiq comes back on Buchanan just like the lap before, except on all opposite sides. That curb pitches Buchanan this time. Still side by side through the snake.
Oh, this is such a tight area of racetrack to run side by side. You're using every inch of curb, every inch of asphalt. They're going to get it sorted out. Now they're going to try to run up this close nose to tail. And the S is one little slip up here. It's a long ride to find the guardrail here.
Yeah, it's a smart move to get single file. Oh, one of the drivers misses it just a little bit. Kuracek goes through the grass, but no harm, no foul. And right here, the car gets super light. You got to get on the brakes as soon as it lands. And then
Sadiq hard off of the racetrack. Gonna slam the barrier, and just like that, the race is over for the 163. And Tom, it's so easy to have that mistake.
So easy. I did it myself a couple weeks ago in one of these races, and then you get into that tire wall. Not the biggest hit, but it's enough to rip the rear wing off and probably call it a day for Sadiq.
Yeah, right there. Just got to the exit the curb and trying to get it and slammed into the wall hard. And then right up the road, it was Lex Kuracek. He went off in Oak Tree, just got loose, and Robles was able to sneak around there. So that got really dicey there for a second as well.
It's the 5-car battle down to 3 for the 9th position with Brou, Buchanan, and Robillard now. Probably separated just a little bit with all that drama, but back at the front, Halseal rallied a little bit, put a couple tenths on Newman that lap.
Yeah, it was
gone in the braking zone.
Yeah, it was pretty close. It was 154.967 to a 154.976. So a couple hundreds that time better for Halseal, but Newman is still putting the pressure on. I just think right now, Tom, as you said before, it's really the draft keeping Newman here. I'm not really sure that he's got the pace to go for a pass, but he's got 5 laps left to do it. He's going to have to give it a go.
He looks like he's really good on corner entry, and it's just Halseal is so good on the corner exit. Right there, you see the gap just start to build. As soon as they put the power down, it's almost flat at this point, all the way down to the upper S's, to the top of the upper S's, I should say. And it's just kind of the ebb and flow of where these 2 drivers are making speed, and the lap is really favoring Ken Halseal's driving at this track.
Look how fast they're going, 130 plus miles an hour through there, cresting the hill. Car gets light, then you're back to the left for a south bend. Track right up to the edge of the racetrack. That's actually part of the track that is now wider than it used to be, as we've got Zach Buchanan off at the exit of turn 5 here in the down in the snake. So was there a contact, or did you just get wide? Looks like just caught the grass with the left rear tire.
Oh man, it's just, you got to be so inch perfect through these sections, and that was exactly what happened to Sadiq the lap before. He just touched the curb in the wrong way. Look at that beautiful panning shot through the green of VIR upper S's. This is that super challenging section where your car with a little more downforce really isn't that huge of an event through there. It's still fun, but these Caymans are almost scary through South Bend.
And tucking up underneath the branches of Oak Tree, now back up to the front, keeping an eye on these 2 leaders. That time Halseal got a really good run up to Roller Coaster and has gapped Newman by a half a second as they come on through to complete lap number 6 of 10. But deeper in the field, there's Jackson Robillard and Anthony Montello. This is for 9th.
Montello's got a great race going. I think he started 17th or so, and he's up all the way battling for the top 10 in his Lazy Rocket car. So that's a great run for the 24.
Started 14th to 10th for him. So up 4 for Montello, but he's still about 9/10 back behind Jackson Robillard. That gap has increased. Riley Thompson in the 56. Are we surprised that we're not seeing more of Riley this week? He's been up front competing at most of the fastest American racetracks. We saw him run really well at Circuit of the Americas and was a factor, or should have been a factor at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park before he had an early issue. But it seems like this week his pace hasn't quite been on par with where he was in previous weeks.
Yeah, perhaps, and that may come down to, like we've talked about, a lot of these drivers did a bunch of races in this car just by chance, back-to-back over the last couple weeks, and Thompson, Newman, Crum, and Thompson are all not in that category, so you see that Newman's doing a great job. Crum and Thompson are normally more there than they are this week, and that may be down to that.
Up the S's again, lap number 7 of 10. Closest battle on the racetrack is the one you're watching between Crum, Lapras, and Thompson as they head down through South Bend. Bit of a bobble there for Lapras over the exit curb. Now Thompson sees an opportunity, gonna dive up the inside into Oak Tree, pass for position complete, move Thompson to the top 5.
Yeah, they're single file by the apex, so they're going to get a good run down the back straight, but they've lost touch with Kirk Crum just a little bit, so the battle for the top 5 has now turned into a battle for 6th, with a little bit of a gift for Crum, and something happened. Oh, no, that's actually a battle for 4th. Looks like
yep.
Error on the timing screen, my bad.
Yep. Kuracek had reset back to the pits, which puts him on top of the scoring for the time being. So as soon as the leaders come back by the pits, that will reset. Side by side in a roller coaster, though. Lapras wanted it back, but can't have it. Thompson keeps it still there in 5th.
Yeah, Lapras showed the nose, and Thompson was gracious about it, gave him the lane, but that was the passing zone we talked about. You don't really think of it as not straight until you're side by side, and then all of a sudden you realize that it's a very, very narrow lane to get one car through there, let alone 2.
So I want to take a look at the weather because the cloud has come over Virginia International Raceway. Look at the track temp, 99 degrees Fahrenheit. This is some of the coolest temps that we've seen all week. The practice has been well into the 120s, even with this ambient temp of 71 degrees, so the track surface dropping below 100. You're going to feel that in this car. It's going to be a lot grippier for these last few laps.
And this is when these cars are also coming into their own finally. They take about 5 laps to really get to their perfect spot with the tire temperatures, and then they just kind of stay there. So Newman pounding the curbs, maybe gaining more and more confidence as the car gets more underneath him. That's one of the things that I think Ken Hausiel really excels at in this car is the car control while the car is not its best. You know, at the beginning of the race when the car is cooler, maybe Dan Newman's a little more comfortable with the car at pace, and he's going to be able to turn the wick up a little bit on these last couple laps.
There's a lift for the run up to South Bend and then back to the left-hand side of the racetrack, and he's just getting a little bit more aggressive. And you feel this as the tires get warm, Tom. And 10 laps is still kind of a short run for these cars as a whole in terms of the iRacing service. So you're getting these tires warmed up, and you get a lot more slip angle to play with. The first couple laps, if you get sideways, the car is gone. Can't save it. Once you get the heat in the tires, you can really slide around a lot more, and I think that's what's increasing the confidence for the 48.
For sure, and you saw just there on the entry to Oak Tree, Newman made up a couple of, you know, it naturally compresses the braking zone, but Newman made up a couple of car lengths, and then Hausiel just gets the power down so well, put every amount of ground that Newman makes up in that braking zone back on him. As they come with the roller coaster this time, and see if he gets another good run. Newman looks like he's actually pretty strong through hog pen here, so they're going to bounce off of the bump stops. Yeah, Newman does a good job there.
So what does Newman have to do different? Because right now what he's doing isn't working, at least to get him to the lead. He's going to have 2 laps left, so about 6 miles of racing left. What does he have to do different now to be able to pass this 23? Focus less on the braking and more on the acceleration, or just keep doing what he's doing but more of it?
It's so inherently built in now to your practice as to what you're doing. It's really challenging and risky to change up your rhythm at this point, but it looks like it's kind of rooted in 2 spots for me. It's rooted in the exit to Oak Tree. That's kind of keeping him from being able to attack down into roller coaster, but he also looks like he's just a little bit further behind the car in the S's, the fast uphill S's. You see Hausiel is mostly driver's right when he comes out of those S's and brakes for South Bend, and Newman's usually a little bit closer to center track, and I think that's just kind of closing him off from kind of floating that speed through there. And if he can fix those 2 spots on 1 lap, he's only got 2 laps to do it, so it's really, really hard. But if he can get even just one of them right, that might be the last 10th or 2 that he needs to be within drafting distance of Hausiel down that back straight.
That's
right here.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. He was just offset slightly more to driver's right was Hausiel, so that puts him in a better spot for the left-hander at South Bend. Now the run up to Oak Tree. Newman closes in here in the brakes, and then Hausiel's going to stretch it right back out. Look at the run that he gets, and it's all about getting that car rotated. And the setups, again, open setups in this series, you're allowed to play with it. I'm sure Hausiel set his car up to rotate nicely so he can get the run out of that corner.
Yeah, I know from experience driving Hausiel setups, he tends to like a little bit of a tighter car, a lot of security in the rear end, and that's going to give him nice, solid runs out of these corners, versus other drivers who may prefer a little bit more rotation, a little more free, you call it a little more oversteery, whatever you want to call it. Those cars don't tend to put power down nearly as well. Maybe Newman is one of those drivers, but they tend to make a lot better apex speed with that kind of setup.
Coming into the white flag this time through. This is only race 1 of 4. Right after this, we'll have the first one of the night for the TCR category cars. Then we'll head back for GS race 2, and then TCR race 2. Look at the flash of the lights on the 48 car, Tom. He wants to get in House Seal's head. We have not seen Ken make a single mistake yet tonight. And maybe flashing lights is what he needs to do to get the mistake out of the 23. Closes right up to their tailpipes here down in turn 1.
Yeah, Newman looking racy, and that was actually the closest they've been, I think, at start-finish. Only 3/10 between the two of them at start-finish that time, and I've been kind of keeping an eye on that's pretty much as close as it's been. Now through NASCAR, a little bit of curb, onto the brakes for the lower S's. This is only where you can make a mistake. You're probably not going to make up a bunch of ground here, but Newman's quick through here. And then this is one of the sections where Hauseil's been able to get off the corner just a little bit better, gap Newman just a little bit, and surely he does. Now it's up to 4/10, 4.6 now.
Now they're going to string their way through the S's, and this is all about setting yourself up for the run down to Oak Tree. So it's a right, a left, a left, a right, and then you're making the left up at South Bend to set up for Oak Tree. And Paul Darling is not that far behind. He's 2 seconds back from Newman. So if these two were to tangle, Paul Darling's right there to capitalize on it, but I don't think Newman's even close enough here, Tom. He's out of striking distance unless Hauseil makes a mistake. Hauseil charges the corner a little bit hard, but such a good run through the exit of the corner. But Newman, a great run through Oak Tree, and he's a half a second back, but he needs to be closer to that to make a draft up to the leader here.
Yeah, and the draft doesn't really start to take effect until about the second crest on this back straight. Right now, you start to get a feel of it. We're just about to pull 6th gear, and then right here, you pull 6th. The draft gets pretty strong, but only for that last little bit of the straightaway. They're going to be hard on the brakes. Sparks fly off the front of the 23, down into roller coaster for the final time. He's only got 2 corners left to go.
You almost taste it. Newman's so close to victory, but Ken Hauseil was perfect from start to finish. And out of hog pen, checkered flag's going to wait for race 1 of 4 tonight, 1 of 2 in the Grand Sport category. Hauseil is going to go to victory lane at Virginia International Raceway. Newman less than 3/10 back. Then Darling, Crum, and Thompson, they're chasing each other out of hog pen as well down to the finish.
Yeah, very close. These guys were nose to tail for the last half of this race between the 87 and the 56 after Lapras dropped off just a little bit. And then Alex Barroso, a heck of a charge from 15th to 7th. He's going to start, I have to imagine, well, we're going to invert at least 10 of these cars. So he's going to start better than all these guys for race number 2. He's going to be one to watch.
All right, so Barroso comes home P7, and Jackson Robillard had a bit of a scare earlier down in turn 1 right at the start, but finishes 9th place. Anthony Montello comes back in 10th. Zach Buchanan, probably not the race he wanted, but he'll rebound for an 11th. So we'll see what he can do in the second Grand Sport race of the night. So here is a look at your race results, and we're gonna re-rack them, restack them in a little while, but we have to go race TCR, Tom, so that's gonna be a look very different, I think. No idea what the numbers are gonna be, no idea what the participation's gonna be, so those cars race really well. They're bigger car. I feel like they drive like they're bigger cars. I'm not really sure if they're dimensionally any wider, but you got to get those elbows out because we're going to go front-wheel drive touring car racing here in just a minute. Welcome back live to Sim TV and Radenso Sports Car Challenge. It's the second race of 4 tonight, the first of the TCR category races. We got just over 20 drivers lined up for this first race of the evening with the front-wheel drive touring cars, Tom. These things are going to race completely differently than what we just saw, but it's going to be just as good.
Yeah, the draft much more in effect. The risk factor is a little lower. These cars are a little more stable through those really hairy sections of VIR, and actually a bigger field for the first time this season in Radenso Sports Car Challenge. We have 20 drivers in this field, so a couple more. The quality of field not any lower. We've got a bunch of the key players, and there's the provisional pole sitter right now, the number 99 of Elias Roman, who's got the fast time by 2.5 tenths over Andrew Pilata so far.
Now 159.0 for Elias Roman, and we're going to go through the field. One of the drivers that we need to note that is back this week is Kyle Herbst. Now, Kyle was serving a suspension last week at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta after being suspended for incidents related to crashes at Watkins Glen International. So Herbst is back, and he's going to be a major player tonight. Also, Ryan Kristoff in the 46. We've seen him be mighty fast as well lately. Louis Alessi's back in the 43 car tonight. So a lot of our key players are here and are going to be running this race this evening. I think we're missing most of the people from the grand scheme of Radenso Sports Car Challenge just in the Grand Sport category. So we're going to have a really solid competitive race. Very excited to get this one underway.
Yeah, I'm looking at the championship points, and pretty much all the players are there. And I think we observed last week at Road Atlanta, we basically looked at the top 10 and we said, after they had inverted the top 10, and we said that could be the qualifying order, we'd still believe you. So the quality of field in TCR is just awesome right now. And it is actually Eric Mickey, who's on screen right there, who's been kind of the hero so far. He's got 4 wins in 8 races. He's been in the top 5 7 of 8 times, top 10 every race. He's got a ton of huge point championship lead, and he's been a ton of fun to watch this season. Currently qualified only 2 tenths off the pole in 3rd.
Yeah, it's really interesting, that view there. You could see how much of a drop it is over the crest in the South Bend corner there. It really doesn't look like a whole lot from some angles, but then you get an overhead angle like that, it looks like you drop several stories. And I've never been to this track in person, Tom, so I can't say what it's like in person, but I imagine that South Bend curve, that drop off that cliff there, feels fairly significant.
Yeah, the drop off of the terrain is one thing, but the texture on the exit, when you track out that curb on driver's right on our left screen right now, it's super bumpy, and if you catch it just right, it's pretty minimal. Kind of similar to if you're online at Sebring, it's not that bad, but when you go offline, holy cow, it is bumpy. So that's the biggest challenge tracking out of South Bend. Here's another guy that's been fun to watch every single week, Brad Adams in the number 21 Grid Life car.
I love this paint. It's so simple and effective, and Brad's certainly a quick driver and didn't have the best of luck last night in the Grid Life iRacers Quarantine Cup over on the Grid Life channel, so maybe looking to kind of redeem himself tonight and run up inside the top 10, comes across the line. That time through was a 1:59.885. It will put him in 10th for now, and I don't think he'll get another lap in here, but a solid run, starting about midfield here. Other drivers to keep an eye on, Chris Harp in the 36. He's been pretty quick the races that he's entered so far. Wasn't here the first couple of rounds, but since he's been... Oh, I see a driver that's just hopped in here, Tom, that I think we should probably talk about. How about Kenton Cook in the number 8 car?
Oh, really? Okay, so that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, especially given we only have 2 minutes left. If he just joined the session, he's not going to get qualifying. So he's going to start just in the 21st-ish spot. That's going to be fun to watch if he's driving for sure. But I was going to point out, look at the tower on your left of your screen. The top 9 are on the same 6 tenths. That's nuts.
It's pretty wild how close everybody is right now, and if you take a look at Bill Griffin here in the 97, he's got a new paint scheme on board this car this week. Good to see Bill out iRacing, and the fun story behind Bill was the first time I'd ever gone to a Grid Life event. I think, Tom, you already know this story, but I pulled up to Gingerman Raceway and was looking very lost and confused in my Toyota Corolla, and I think I was talking on the phone to Adam or something, and then Bill walked right up to the window and said, "Hey, are you Kyle from Sim TV?" And I said, "Heck yeah, I am." And that was the coolest experience of my life ever. So thanks to Bill for that. But right now he's headed on the back straightaway. I don't think he'll get a chance to finish this lap, but he'll be starting the race back in at least 16th or 17th place.
Yeah, cool guy. Joined us for Watkins Glen in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. I don't think he's been back since until now. So he's back getting some sim laps at VIR. But right now, Pilata at the front by a 10.5 over Dylan Broyles, Eric Mickey, Elias Roman, and Ryan Kristoff with a great qualifying effort. Again, just so tight through the top 10. Really, 6 tenths across the top 9th is nothing here at VIR.
So we've got over 20 drivers lined up for this race. It'll be a 10-lap event just like our GS race. Taking a look at the weather, it's going to look like more of the same, but this time the track surface temperature a little bit warmer than the tail end of the GS race, 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And this car, you need to get those tires nice and toasty. We've talked about this TCR car. It really benefits from getting the tires hot before the racing goes green. We're going to see a lot of weaving, maybe a lot of forward to back accelerating and braking just to get some heat in those rear tires especially. The fronts are easy, the rears are the hard ones.
And that's also a balance because the Cayman doesn't really experience a whole lot of fall off over especially a race this short, but even a long 40+ minute race. The GS cars just don't fall off that hard. The TCR cars doing all the work through the front tires, they do fall off just a little bit. And in 10 laps with 110 degree track temperatures, if you are a little more patient at the start of this race, you save the tires a little bit better, you are going to be in a better position in the last, 8, 9, 10th lap versus the GS. So there's a little more strategy going into how you approach these races in the TCR cars. That said, the racing has been so tight and so chaotic in the TCR field, in usually a good way, that I don't know that any of these guys are going to take that breather.
So Eric Mickey in the 88 has been pretty much the dominant force in this series since the green flag dropped at COTA, was one of the winners of the races there and has won a race pretty much every round since then. Is he the favorite, or is Andrew Pilata the obvious favorite with the races that he's been up front and winning?
It totally depends on the situation because Pilata's always had the pace. He's been on pole a number of times. He's on pole right here. But the consistency that Eric Mickey's had over this season has been what's put him to the front so many times. And he's always in the battle for the front, even when he gets collected in incidents that we've had. We haven't had the cleanest starts at some of these races. But also just when he's getting inverted into the top, 10th and 15th or further back, he still manages to get up towards the front cleanly and just put in these super consistent performances. So I would say from a betting man's odds perspective, Eric Mickey is the favorite. That said, Andrew Pilata has been the fastest car on track almost every single race. It's just a matter of consistency for him. So it's kind of a roulette as to how these races are going to unfold. And then, like we talked about, the entire top 9 cars, you look at Dylan Broyles in the bright green car on the inside row, Elias Roman's another fast driver, Tyler Jones, Caleb John Lavender, all those guys have at times been in contention for the win, and some of them are starting way back in 9th and 10th, so anything can happen in this race.
Heading up through Snake towards the lower S's here, and then up into the upper S's. 20 cars. Kenton Cook did not make it to the grid, so he'll either start from the pits or maybe he's just watching and might participate in the second race of the evening. I wasn't sure. Again, I don't have a huge role in the facilitating of this series, so I didn't know that he was even in the series, so that might have been something that Finian had set up earlier. So either way, we'll get to see him race probably at some point tonight. Benson Ty also did not make it to the grid. Neither did Nick Babin in the 66 car, but everybody else is on track and ready to go racing. At the tail of the field, Francis Castillo-Romero, he picked up a penalty last week, I believe, as did Jackson Robillard in the Grand Sport series, or the Grand Sport category, but that has already been applied. It was a points penalty there. So back up front as we head down through South Bend. This is a tricky corner because I feel like on the brakes in this car, Tom, on colder tires, the rear end kind of wants to step out when you put all that load on the fronts. How do you kind of keep the rear end from slipping and sliding? Do you leave a little bit of throttle application, or what's the best way to manage the oversteer in the first lap or two?
Yep, exactly. You're going to back the braking zone up just a little bit, and you're going to pick that power up right as you turn in, and you're not going right back to full power or anything crazy. You're just picking up enough to balance the weight of the car back towards the rear tires so that you can kind of float that speed through. And what will not happen, I don't believe, is what we saw last race with Sadiq, where you touch the curb and the car snaps around. These cars are very stable on corner exit because they are front-wheel drive. You have to watch the entries, and I guarantee you someone in this 20-car field will lose the back end on that first lap. Not necessarily in a spin situation, but just gets away from you. You got to wait for it to come back, and that has affected every single race this season at least once from one of our key players.
On board with Eric Mickey in the 88 Bombshell Racing Team car as they head up to roller coastering at a blind crest like you talked about earlier, then down the hill towards Hog Pen, the final corner on the racetrack. This is going to be a fun race. I'm really excited for this. We get to watch touring cars, and this is very much like the British Touring Car Championship. They get the elbows out here a little bit, but remember, the starts are going to be an issue. We saw drivers last week perform quite nicely with the new rule. You have to stay in the tire tracks of the driver in front of you until you pass the start and finish line. Everyone has to remember that rule has been reiterated several times, I'm sure, in the drivers' meeting. Stay in line, behave until you get past that green flag starter stand. Here we come. 10 laps for Radenso Sports Car Challenge, TCR race number 1. Green flag flies, racing at VIR again.
Great jump for Andrew Pilata. Broyles tries to protect, and I don't think he made it over there just in time to protect against Mickey. So they're going to go side by side down into turn number 1. Mickey already picking up a spot super deep on the brakes. Oh, almost gets into the back of Pilata. And there's the rear tire grip we talked about. That's Tyler Jones, goes around into the grass.
He had a little bit of help from Kyle Herbst. So that car kind of dove to the inside, knocked him off track, put Pilata to the lead. Dylan Broyles in second, Mickey in third. Behind him, another car spinning, Herbst again. And this time he's got Caleb John Lavender tied up with him. So he's had 2 incidents in the first 2 corners. Not a good jump back to the series for Herbst as we jump back out front. Pilata trying to drive away, keep Dylan Broyles, Mickey, and Christoph in behind him.
Yeah, and they've got Roman still attached to the back of them there as well. So the top 5 get a little bit of a break from the rest of the field, and that's bad news for a bunch of the other drivers who we said were kind of in the top 9, but not really connected to the field anymore. But a little bit of a gap for Pilata as they come through. This is that really challenging. You're going to see he's off the brakes past these cars trail brake just a little bit down in there, but probably a little bit of throttle as well to balance them out. Now down into Oak Tree for the first time. Almost a second advantage for Pilata as they apex Oak Tree.
Now the run over the back straight. Look at Broyles, a little bit of understeer for him. That's going to leave Eric Mickey right on the tailpipes as they head down the back straight. Maybe a little bit of side draft here if you can make that work. I'm not sure that's something you really get to play with a lot in a touring car versus something like a stock car. But look at Broyles kind of crowding Mickey on the right side of the racetrack. Not a lot of space there, but there is some, and they're going to use all of it as they head to roller coaster.
This is that narrow braking zone. What's Mickey going to do? He's going to back out. That's a smart decision. This early in a 10-lap race, he doesn't need to force the issue right now. And again, he's got like a 46-point championship lead right now over everybody else. He doesn't even need to win any of these races anymore. He just needs to finish consistently all the way through the rest of the season. That was a good championship move there.
He's done a good job so far keeping out of trouble, and the only crashes he's gotten into are the ones he couldn't avoid at, I believe it was at Watkins Glen. As you see, well, there's teammate Andrew Mickey going for a big slide at the exit of Hog Pen.
Michael Shea goes with him too.
There's Evan Adams way off in the background for second and for fourth behind him.
2 by 2 into turn 1, tons of wiggling around in the braking zone. Christoph protects from Roman, and now Broyles goes for the over-under on Mickey. They're going to go side by side through turn 2 up into NASCAR as now Mickey finally clears him. Brake checks him just a little bit to balance the car out.
Big slide for Broyles. Couldn't keep the rear tires up underneath him, but Mickey is through to second. Look at the yaw and the slip out of the 88. He's still trying to get those rear tires up to 10th, but Pilata just driving away right now. Loves what he's seeing in the mirror.
And he's got to be careful. As long as he's not abusing the car to drive away like that, you can really kind of do yourself in by leaning on these tires in the first couple of laps, and then all of a sudden they're gone. But Pilata's been racing this car a whole lot in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge and in other series. I can't imagine that he's making that mistake right now as he's pulled out about 1.5 seconds over the new second place driver, Eric Mickey. Broyles back to third. Christoph has a great run going on the back of these guys for fourth, and Roman still in touch in fifth.
Oh, look at Mickey a little bit hot into Oak Tree, maybe. Broyles as well. Little rear tire slipping and sliding. They got the power down now, and it's a 1.5 second gap between Pilata, Mickey, Broyles, and Christoph. And now Elias Roman's tucked in there. Will Robbins in the 35. That's the red and black car at the top of the screen. And Brad Adams in the 21. He started his night in 10th. He's gained 3 spots already in the first lap.
And I think that's actually down to the 3 front runners that we lost in that first lap, but he's well within touch of the rest of the field, so they're not too strung out. Oh, Broyles super deep into the roller coaster. Mickey trying to protect, goes a little bit sideways too, and Christoph's going to come back at him up a driver's right. Now on the wrong side of the track for Hog Pen as Brad Adams goes for a little bit of a ride, loses 1 spot, and now into the clutches of Ryan Carwile, but Broyles jumps it off.
Yeah, that's a bad spot to go off. It's going to be so hard to pull that car back on track. So slippery at the exit of Hog Pen, and just like that, a car that was running second is now running 9th. Make that 10th, make it 11th as Tyler Jones comes on through. That's a big mistake for him. For third place, Elias Roman takes a look up the inside of Ryan Christoph. He'll take that spot away.
All of a sudden these guys find themselves battling for a podium, and I don't know that they're going to be able to keep up with the front two, Pilata and Mickey, as Pilata actually put 3/10 on Mickey the rest of that lap. So Pilata is definitely in the groove right now, but this battle for third now between Roman, Kristoff, and Robbins is going to be the one to watch for the final podium spot.
Looking out the rear window of the 99 and looking out the front, you can see how much understeer he had through turn 5, but now it's just a straight shot. You get to let this 325 or so horsepower wind up all the way up the hill, full throttle into 6th gear, and climb the S's.
Pretty much center punch all of these curves all the way up. You see just how much of it they're using, and I love this shot. The sensation of speed is just awesome as they grab the brakes now through South Bend and down there's that huge drop. It's really bumpy on the outside there, braking as deep as you possibly can. It's really tough to see this corner because it's decreasing radius and uphill and blind. It's kind of the biggest combination of challenges you could put into one corner.
Worrell's got back by Chris Harp, now sets his sights on Ryan Carwile in front. We haven't talked about Carwile yet tonight. He started in 11th, he gained 3 spots, and now has to hold off the 8:18 as he tries to charge back forward. Still a lot of racing left. We're about 5 minutes into this 20-minute race. Pilata still leads, but now for third, we've been keeping an eye on this. Kristoff putting pressure back on Elias Roman, and Will Robbins has reeled them both in.
Yeah, Will's having a great race right now. I think he started 10th and is up to 5th. Based on attrition and good decision making. He's going to cling onto the back of this. Look at Kristoff still sliding around all over the place 3 laps in, and that's a little bit due to just the way these cars handle. As long as you're keeping the front end hooked up, you can kind of let the back end do whatever it wants, as long as it doesn't start to pull the front end along with it. These guys, it takes a really kind of unique and creative approach to driving a front-wheel drive car like this fast.
Here comes Broyles up on Carwile. Will he take a look into turn 1? Way late on the brakes. Can he get it low down? He will. Carwile leaves him plenty of space, and Broyles is quick, but Carwile's going to come back on the inside. I think Broyles outbroke himself slightly, but he will hang on to 7th for now. He's charging back forward, Tom. He's got enough time and enough pace to at least get back up to 5th if he keeps going at this rate.
Yeah, Lupfer is the next driver in his sights, and we haven't talked about Max tonight, but he actually switched over from Grand Sport. I was wondering who was in that Wins liveried car because it looks awesome. That's a cool looking car, but Max switched over from the GS category to the TCR category after the first couple rounds. He's back this week in the 688, and he's going to try to maintain that gap between himself and Broyles as long as he can. He's got 6 laps to cling on to this 6th spot.
And about 1.7 behind Will Robbins. Kristoff has lost a little bit of ground to Elias Roman. But out front, Andrew Pilata's making this look easy as he heads through Oak Tree. Eric Mickey last time by was half a second slower, and that's the championship leader. So you know that Pilata's fast when Mickey is having trouble keeping up.
And that's actually the margin that they had in qualifying is half a second. So that's as long as Pilata continues to put in his best at qualifying pace and Mickey is continuing to do the same, it's going to be about a half a second every lap. And I think that kind of harkens back to when we've talked to Mickey in the past. He said he's the first to acknowledge, it looks like Herbst has had another off. More damage on the Sour Patch car, but Mickey's the first to say, I didn't expect to be a front runner. I didn't expect to be dominant. I just found myself in these positions to capitalize every single race. Herbst goes for the ride by himself. Ooh,
that was a hard
big
hit.
Clunk off the tire.
Yeah, and while we have a minute here, Tom, I do want to take a minute to go back and look at the lap 1 incident that we saw down into turn number 1. It did involve the 89 of Herbst, so now we have a lull in the action. Here's a look at the turn 1, lap 1 collision. This is on the initial start. There's the 29 to the outside. That car was being driven by Tyler Jones. Herbst sails up the inside, gets on the curb, and there's not a lot of space there. But then they go down to turn 3, and then I think it was Caleb John Lavender that might get into the back of the 89.
Yeah, there's a big gap between the two of them right here, and it looks like Herbst actually had a float, tried to protect it, and Caleb John Lavender was kind of already committed to the momentum of where that car was headed. So I don't know that I would fault either of those two in that one. If anything, maybe a little bit delayed response from Lavender in checking up for Herbst having that moment, but tight stuff at the start.
Yeah, a lot of those, I would just probably classify them as racing incidents, at least the first one for sure. Now up through the S's this time, coming to halfway next time by Pilata is absolutely dusting everybody. Eric Mickey now dealing with the pressure from behind. That is from Elias Roman in the 99. He is coming and coming fast.
He's bringing Christoph with him. Those guys about evenly margined right now. Christoph a little further off the back of him, but Elias Roman having a great run, and he's got the draft. Look at the big slide from Mickey on the way into Oak Tree. That's going to slow him down on the way off. These front-wheel drive cars do not like to put power down on corner exit because the front end's already doing so much work to get through the corner. Elias Roman has a little bit easier job in just hanging on from the back down these straightaways and then relying on the draft to bring him closer and closer to Mickey. And they qualified on the exact same 10th, so these guys have the same pace in these cars. It's going to be an interesting battle to watch as Roman, you see how much it closes up on the brakes, jacks up just a little bit early to make sure that he gets his braking zone just right. And he's just a little further ahead of the cars. Mickey once again slides through the apex of roller coaster and runs out just a little bit wide.
Another battle off in a roller coaster is Andrew Mickey and Michael Shea. Shea in the 78 car, Mickey in the 86. That's a pass for position. And Louis Alessi, Kyle Herbst. This is for 16th place. With all the trials and tribulations Herbst has had, he's still in the main pack here fighting for position.
And we invert somewhere between the top 10 and 20 drivers for the second race of this season in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. So Kyle Herbst is well within the meat of that. If they invert the top correct number for him, he may inherit something close to or pole.
We're on to the front straight now. He's going to carry a lot of speed with it, and we'll see as soon as he comes out from behind the shadow of the barn there across the start-finish line towards turn number 1, moving to driver's left, maybe to get Alessi to block the left side because he's going to have a look up the inside for turn 1. Here he comes. That's late on the brakes. Going to get it stopped? Yes, he does.
Yeah, good textbook pass there, and he's going to set his sights on Mickey now as Michael Shea has gone through. That's for 14th on back right here in frame.
While this battle continues, it looks like Will Robbins has gotten through Ryan Christoph for 4th, so move Robbins up to the P4 spot, Christoph back to 5th, and Eric Mickey still has Elias Roman breathing down his neck, all about 4 seconds behind Andrew Pilata.
Let's see if Roman can get another good run through Oak Tree this time. He had a great run last time as Mickey had a bit of a moment and was able to close up pretty close to the back bumper of the 88 down the back straight last time. Both get off pretty similarly this time, so it'll be just down to draft. But look who's also joined the battle for 4th. It's Max Lupfer. So we have a 2-car battle for 2nd, and we have a 3-car battle for 4th right now.
And kind of distinct little groupings of cars around this racetrack. And there's another one back here. This is 15, 16, 17th. Andrew Mickey, Kyle Herbst, Louis Alessi. We'll keep our eyes on all of these, or as many as we can, for 2nd place. Gets tight as they head down roller coaster, Mickey and Roman. And then you mentioned the 3-car fight for 4th, Robbins, Christoph, and Lupfer. This hog pen is rounded by Andrew Pilata. This time through, we'll start lap number 7 of 10, and Lupfer is here and about ready to party for 5th.
2 cars to draft, which is better than 1. Didn't get the best run off of Hogpen that time, but these 3 are certainly super close. And then if they got to be a little bit careful because they've got Dylan Broyles within striking distance back there. He's only, call it 2.5 seconds behind this battle.
I would be worried because Dylan Broyles, his last lap was a 1:58.8. That was quicker than Christoph by 2 seconds as we had a car off in the final corner. I believe it was Michael Shea in the 78. Let's go back and see. I don't want to, because right in front of him, they're a 3-car fight, and they're not done battling here yet.
Yeah, and Kyle Herbst now has to deal with the body damage on that car when he pounded off that wall in Oak Tree. You see how slow it was in a straight line, and Mickey, whoa, plows in deep and goes off just a little bit, barely saves it on the track. But the aerodynamics on that 89 car are going to be terrible right now by itself. He's okay when he's in the draft, but now that he's at the front of this battle, he's going to have a really hard time staying there.
So Will Robbins now dealing with pressure from Christoph again. He hasn't been able to pull away. We only have 6 minutes left in this race for Christoph to get back, but I think Lupfer can go as high as 4th here. He just needs to dispose of the Christoph machine before. For 2nd place, though, here comes Elias Roman on the outside into Oak Tree. That's a heck of a pass to try as they head under the branches.
And they're still side by side at apex. Mickey being courteous to leave all the room on the outside there, and Roman's going to get a better run, but Mickey now has plenty of draft to get alongside these guys, and the more they do that, the more it's going to turn into a 5-car battle for 2nd, so they can't do that too many times. Look at the run Mickey's got.
Drag
goes
race
outside.
Up the back straight here at VIR, lap 7 of 10, Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Mickey back by Roman. Can he clear him? Not quite. Roman's way deep on the brakes. Can he get the car stopped and slowed? Yeah, just in time for the corner there. That was an excellent pass for Roman to recomplete that as they head into turn number 15 and 16 here.
It was beautiful. You saw the 99, the back end was trying to go right, and the steering was telling him, no, we're going left, and then vice versa. As soon as they crest that hill, you got to get the car down to the right. It's just so much going on there, and then you put in side by side, it turns into chaos pretty quick. But that amount of exchange this time by, they're only 1 second advantage to Will Robbins in fourth. We're going to go side by side again. Mickey wants this second spot right now.
It's not a really good place to try it, though. Turn 1, you really can't get the move over, but he's going to do the over-under into turn 1. That was an excellent move. He's got this planned out like a chess match, and he's been practicing for a while.
But he's not going to be able to shut the door by NASCAR through turn 2, and he knows it. He backs off of it with a little bit of brake, tucks in behind Roman because he knows it's a death sentence to go side by side through here. But just that quick. Look now, all 5 of them are right there for second place with Roman at the front. Mickey now side by side, mirrors full of Will Robbins, who does still have Christoph and Lupfer behind him.
You wanted sports car racing? Well, you got it here. 3 laps to go. This is what, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 car fight for second at Virginia International Raceway. They call it heaven on earth right now for Elias Roman. It feels like hell on earth because he's got to defend from 4 hungry drivers behind him.
This is one of those races. Is it over yet? Is it over yet? From Roman's seat, from Mickey, he's wishing he had every opportunity now. Christoph pokes the nose. Whoa, very close on the back of Robbins.
That was really tight there. You saw Christoph got mighty tight to the edge of the racetrack, was able to avoid running off the course in South Bend. Look at them all accordion together. Eric Mickey in third. Didn't get the greatest run off the corner, though. Look at how Elias Roman just gapped him on corner exit.
Yeah, that was a Ken Halseal kind of gapping right there. He just rocketed off the corner. And he's actually trying to break the draft a little bit as Mickey has to go defensive on Robbins, and Robbins gets the assistance from Christoph and Lupfer behind. Now they're going to go side by side through here once more. Who's got the balls? It's Mickey's pick it this time.
He's got it, and he's back up to third. Robbins has to back out, and it brings Christoph and Max Lupfer into this group. And don't look too far back, because remember Dylan Broyles, who started on the front row? He's back in 7th, and he's only 2.5 seconds behind this group. And with 2 laps to go this time, that's plenty of time for him to catch these guys if they keep racing like this.
It is, but I'm surprised he's not catching them a little bit faster, to be honest. It's been a pretty similar gap between Lupfer and Broyles, and I have to wonder if Broyles' front tires are starting to give up a little bit, because we saw at the beginning of this race he was working pretty hard, and this time he doesn't have the speed as Christoph looks to the left around the outside of Robbins, so deep on the brakes, gets it woed up, but now that's going to let Lupfer all the way on the inside. He's got nowhere to go with the speed, and Christoph's going to carry the momentum now around the outside. He's going to be able to, I think, hold this position into NASCAR as they now turn back to the left.
That's what Robbins wanted to see, was those two get side by side, so now that they all fight and lose a little bit of ground. Lupfer goes back to the inside for turn 4, completes the pass, and moves himself up to a top 5 position. But Christoph is not done yet here, and Dylan Broyles now only 2 seconds back. He's closed in a half a second, making 0.6 of a second in the last sector alone.
Spreading out just a little bit across it was 5 cars. Now it's back to kind of a battle for second between these two. Robbins in kind of no man's land, if you want to call that no man's land. He's still plenty close. And then Lupfer and Christoph, who have been bickering back and forth a little bit. But Mickey has the opportunity this lap to maybe come back on Roman if he can get a good run out of Oak Tree.
Setting up under the branches, under the shade. And that was a better runoff, but look at how much Elias Roman gaps him the first, 100 yards after he exits the corner. It's like he has 100 extra horsepower, just pulls away.
Yeah, it looks like Roman's kind of opening up the entry to Oak Tree by about a half a car width more than Mickey is. Mickey maybe not super comfortable throwing the car into that challenging corner using all the track where Roman is, but still, look at the draft. It brings him back. There's more
late
there. Ooh, big lunge. I don't think he meant to do that.
That certainly seemed like a mistake. Meanwhile, Tyler Jones, Chris Hart for 9th place. Kyle Herbst is back up to 13th and looking for 12th, and Francis Castillo-Romero into roller coaster as well. He's going to have a look on driver's left. Romero holds him tight as they head to, this is going to get dicey as they head down to the braking zone. Oh, and for second, here we go. Battle again. Mickey to the outside.
See if he can pull a Christoph and run the outside here. It's going to be really challenging, or maybe get that over-under once again, but no, Roman learned his lesson. He's not going to let it happen twice, and now Mickey's going to have to tuck back in, and just that quick little exchange has brought Robbins back into the fight once more. So it's 3 cars at the front for second. Pilata now 7 seconds in front of this battle at the front. That's an incredible drive. Christoph a little float in the grass.
Through turn 5, Elias Roman hanging on Mickey, Robbins, Lupfer, Christoph, Broyles, all nose to tail now. Well, the Broyles had a mistake because he's dropped off in that first sector quite significantly. So for Andrew Pilata, chance. Easy sailing up here right now for him. Not a care in the world. Behind him, it's a 5-car hornet's nest for a second-place battle. And we're not going to know who's going to finish there until they come out of hog pen, but I think we'll have a pretty good idea as they float through the back straightaway into roller coaster in just a few seconds here.
Ooh, there, all the track and more for Christoph in the background, but everybody makes it through. Yikes, Mickey is into the back of Roman, and Roman uses the brakes to stop all...
Oh, there goes the leader! The points leader spun around at the exit of Oak Tree, and just like that, points lost as the battle continues. Look at Broyles to third through all that. How did that happen? Elias Roman drives away for second, for fourth, side by side, Christoph and Lupfer.
Somehow that balked all 5 cars, and yeah, Broyles through out of nowhere. They're side by side now with Lupfer and Christoph. Christoph's got the advantage. He can clear the nose, but no, Lupfer comes back at him. They touch a little bit in the braking zone. Lupfer tries to come around the outside in the 6088, and he's going to get the job done. This is the final lap. This is for 4th.
Checkered flag waves for Pilata. Easy peasy lemon squeezy for second. Romans through. Broyles to third. The battle now for 4th place. Lupfer with an incredible drive. He makes it through the carnage in the final lap, and he'll come through for 4th place. Ryan Christoph in 5th. Carwile Jones. What a battle there. Now, big story of that, Eric Mickey, the current points leader in TCR, got turned around at corner exit of Oak Tree. Let's go back and take a look at how he got himself into that situation. Really tight racing there, Tom, but let's have a look here.
Yeah, I got to take a look at this because I was too busy thinking about how Roman's car had to stop 2 TCR cars worth. It's right here. It looks like Roman checked up a little sooner. Mickey was actually in the dirt. He was in the dirt a little bit. And then Robbins shows the nose on the entry. Mickey leaves him room, but then Robbins doesn't really stay to his lane and kind of gets into the back of Mickey right there. I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't actually, honestly, Mickey should have tracked out a little bit more right there. That's kind of on both of them. And then it just kind of collects everybody up in this bottleneck. Now watch Mickey. He doesn't track all the way out towards the curb like he maybe could have, but Robbins also wasn't really on a trajectory to leave Mickey a lane. So that's kind of on both of them just a bit. Now I would say it's a little more on Robbins because he's got a clear view of the car in front of him, where Mickey is relying on his spidey senses for the right rear.
Here's Gil Broyles' view. He just comes out of Oak Tree past the tire barrier, and everybody's in the grass. Just drives right on through, and like a moving chicane, a little bit of contact, but he made it through to 3rd place and podiumed after starting 2nd and dropping all the way outside of the top 10. That was an immense drive, and big props there to Dylan Broyles. Yeah, that's got to be, you come into a corner thinking you're going to finish 7th, and then you come out and everyone's all over the place. You're in 3rd, thinking, what the heck? But Andrew Pilata, dominant 8.4 seconds win over Elias Roman and Dylan Broyles with that comeback. Eric Mickey there in 11th. That's going to be one of his drop races because he hasn't really needed one of those yet, but this is going to be one to forget. Absolutely. We're going to let the rest of those scroll on through. We're going to line you guys up for the second GS race of the night, the 3rd race of the evening here at Radenso Sports Car Challenge. So stick with us. We'll be right back in about 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere.
In the heart of Virginia, there's a stretch of pavement that has ingrained itself in American racing history. Built in 1957 with just a bulldozer and a plot of land, Virginia International Raceway has become an icon. Over the years since its reopening in 2000, it has hosted IMSA, the American Le Mans Series, NASCAR, SCCA, and Champ Car races. Legends have raced there, including Roger Penske, Mark Donohue, Richard Petty, Hurley Haywood, Dan Gurney, and more. Between turns 11 and 12 stood a defying feature, an old oak tree. This tree stood untouched, shading the south end of the course for decades. For some, Oak Tree became a symbol of VIR and a reminder of how road courses used to be built. They used to be built with the lay of the land, following each contour and moving around obstacles, not through them. Earth may have been moved, but not tarnished. Oak Tree was a lasting memory of when tracks were not just built, they came to be, like the tree. Although Oak Tree no longer stands, nor does Hog Pen turn 17, the corners both still bear the name of what used to exist. And the track stays unchanged the way it was meant to be, with the lay of the land, for the land. Maybe that's why Paul Newman called it heaven on earth.
Welcome back live to Sim TV once again for the third race of 4 in the round 5 of Radenso Sports Car Challenge. The second race for Grand Sport tonight. Tom, race 1, we saw a really good battle up front with Dan Newman and Ken Seal. Now for race 2, I'm not sure that we're going to really know who's going to win this because we've inverted everybody from basically the tail of the field to the front. We also have Kenton Cook in here, and that's going to be a big wild card.
Yeah, we're inverting the entire field. It was going to be the top 18 cars, and as we only had 17 cars, that's going to actually put Evan Schickel, I believe, on the pole, who had a disastrous race number 1. But right there, the obnoxiously pink car number 8, Kenton Cook, will be the only car that is not inverted because he didn't take the start in race number 1. Now, Kenton, I don't know how much time he has in this car at this track. I don't actually think he has a whole lot of time in the Porsche Cayman GT4 in general. So this will be interesting to watch him start with such extreme adversity at the very, very back of this field on relatively short notice with maybe not a whole lot of practice laps in this car.
I wanted to go over the track map one more time because now that we've seen a couple of races under our belt, Tom, we have a little bit better idea of where the passing has been happening and how dramatic the tire warming has been. The trouble spot in race 1, or at least for TCR, seemed to be down at turn number 1. We saw a couple incidents there, as well as turn 3, the NASCAR bend. For the Grand Sport cars, we didn't see a whole lot of trouble, but where we did see it was at the bottom of the lower S's down in the snake. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's partially because of the way the cars make speed. I think the Caymans are more prone to oversteer, as we saw it, for example, turn number 10 with Tala Sadiq at South Bend there, versus the TCR cars are a little more prone to understeer, and that's why they were maybe kind of plowing off the track at turn 17 and turn 1. But race number 1 for the GS cars was kind of my perfect depiction of what I was talking about with VIR. If you weren't following me at all in race number 1, speed is made with getting off of some key corners. It's coming off of turn 1, off of the snake into the lower S's, coming off of Oak Tree and coming off of Hog Pen here at VIR. And all of the little corner clusters between those sections are what can break the lap. But we saw Ken Seal has a knack for coming off of those key corners just a little bit faster than everyone else in this field. And even though Dan Newman clung to the back of him, he wasn't able to do anything with it because Ken Seal, right here in frame on the 23 car, was just so good off of those couple of corners. He had an advantage down every straightaway, and it just didn't matter for anybody else. Now, what we get to do is flip this thing on its head, and Ken Seal is going to start alongside Kenton Cook at the back of this race.
Corner clusters. I like that term. I'm going to steal that if you don't mind. But
Go for it.
Jackson Robillard, we mentioned earlier that he had a penalty from last week. Well, race 1 wasn't an amazing race for him, but I'm looking forward to seeing him start a little bit closer to the front in this one. I love this livery. This is the same paint that is run on his real-world Global MX-5 Challenge car. He's a competitor in that series. And I just love, there's something about putting real-world paint schemes on sim racing cars that just makes them look so good. We've seen this with Ryan Kristoff's car, of course with Eric Cattill's car. I think there's something really epic about the transferring a real race car into a sim counterpart, and Jackson's car really looks the part.
And it makes it more tangible too. So yeah, like you said, Jackson he was actually smack dab mid-pack in race number 1. So he's going to start smack dab in the center of this race, finish 9th, and we'll start probably 10th, I guess. So that 98 car, he actually got a really good run at COTA at the beginning of this season, Radenso Sports Car Challenge, after he was inverted from a poor race 1 and had a great race 2 to cling on to a 3rd place finish. So he's had a podium this season. He maybe can come back for another one.
Zach Buchanan in the Project 2 number 40 had some issues in the first race. We know he's fast. I would be certain that with how far down the order he finished in race 1, that he's certainly going to be a top 5, maybe even a podium driver in race 2. And Christopher Lapras in the 183, you can never count him out. He's almost as fast as that front group will be starting just in front of drivers Ken Ausil, Kenton Cook, Alex Barroso, and the like, because of where he finished in the first race. So we'll keep an eye on him as warm-up completes. We're going to grid him up and go racing for the second and final time in round 5 here in Grand Sport for Radenso Sports Car Challenge. In 2 weeks, we'll head to Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot, Belgium, Tom. That's one of our only trips. I think it is our only trip outside of the United States. A very, very different racetrack, but that's what's coming up next. So the next time you see these Grand Sport cars will be at the 7-kilometer circuit in Stavelot, Belgium.
These cars are a lot of fun around there. It's a really challenging track to put a full lap together, as it's well over 2 minutes, just like here at VIR, but also, or just unlike here at VIR where they're under 2 minutes. But it's also going to be a night race, so that'll be a new challenge thrown at these guys. Right there in the center of your screen, the 33 car, Evan Schickel, is my guy to watch. He's always fast. He's run top 10. He's been top 5 in some of these races, and he's inherited the pole position in the inverted race. That 33 car, if he can get away from the field a little bit, build a little bit of a gap while the fast guys who are starting at the back kind of work their way through the field, I think he might be tough to catch.
And we're starting right alongside him is Finian Dacuna, who had issues in race 1 and is Sim Motorsports number 94, carrying the Radenso colors on it. That's going to be an interesting driver to see up front. He's done okay in some of these inversions, but he seems to have issues usually by himself, doesn't typically get involved in anybody else's business. We're going to see how he does here, starting in second. Although he's pulling over, maybe an EOL potentially, or maybe solving an issue. We'll find out as we get lined up for the start. So, at the very back of this field, there is Ken Ausil, Kenton Cook, Dan Newman, and Paul Darling, and Kurt Crum. They're really the bottom 3 rows of this field, including Riley Thompson and Kurt Crum. There's a lot of good race cars back here that have to pass about 10 or 12 cars to get up to the front.
Yeah, another guy to watch for me is going to be Alex Barroso, who's we've seen come through the field on multiple occasions this season. And I think back at Road Atlanta, if memory serves, there in the 15, Barroso worked his way through the field faster than the rest of the guys around him. And he's always in this kind of Ausil, Newman, Darling, Crum, Thompson spec driver. He's really, really fast, but he's had success working his way through the field. A little bit better in other rounds than some of those other drivers. So that 15 car is also going to be a lot of fun to watch. And he's got the best starting position of those quote-unquote aliens, whatever you want to call them back there, out of every one of those.
So it looks like Finian Dacuna has dropped to the tail of the field, potentially with an EOL here. But that'll move Schickel. Well, he'll stay put, but the driver that will gain an advantage from this will be whoever was going to start right in behind, which would have been, I think that's the 903 of Rob Gagliardo, or 609 rather, of Rob Gagliardo. He'll get to move up 1 row and start on the outside of that front row, so we'll keep an eye on him. He started from the pits in the first race, really didn't get an opportunity to go racing with anybody else. This is going to be an interesting place to drop him for the start of race 2.
I'm going to say I love that aspect of an invert, because you start from the pit lane for whatever reason, whether it be by choice or for something else. You think, oh, well, this is kind of a throwaway night. I'll just drive around. And now all of a sudden you're on the front row for race number 2, and you got every opportunity in the world to succeed. So that'll be fun to watch, too.
And to Cook, the very last row in his number 8 car, the bright magenta vehicle, as we head through Oak Tree and get set up for the last run down the straightaway. We saw a lot of drivers braking and accelerating very quickly. Which have you found? We talked about this quite a bit, but have drivers kind of scienced this out? Do they know exactly what this needs, or are they just trying to do anything they can to get heat in the tires?
You know, I've heard that iRacing actually rewards the weaving around a little bit more than it does the acceleration and braking for warming up these tires. But what I find is it's kind of hard to feel the weight transfer of the car as you're weaving around. And if you get too aggressive with it, it's easy to spin. And we've seen people spin on these warm-up laps. So I prefer just the acceleration and braking, so I don't, lariat up on a live stream and spin somewhere. But I think it is pretty effective to weave around if you can keep the car under control.
So heading down the back straight, into that little valley before we head up the hill to roller coaster. Taking a look at the weather for race 2. Track a little bit cooler than it was later in the day. So 70 ambient, 97 degrees Fahrenheit track surface. We shouldn't see that rise too much now. And again, it was down towards the upper 90s at the tail end of race 1, but it depends all on where the clouds in the sky will be at the end of this race. So down the hill through Hog Pen for the final time under pacing conditions. We'll turn them loose for 20 minutes. That will set us green. The final GS race in Radenso Sports Car Challenge. After this, don't go anywhere. We'll have TCR race number 2. Pace car is going to peel off. And the starter's got the green flag in hand. Remember the rules again. Stay in line until you pass the start-finish line. Green flag flies. VIR racing again. And Grand Sport Robillard moves hard left. Hopefully that won't get him into trouble.
I think that was for visibility more than anything, but now it's going to get hairy. Look at Sadiq, a little bit of a float on the braking zone. Barroso is all the way up to, what is that, 5th? How did he do that? Buchanan goes off just a little bit after a touch with Gagliardo. He's going to rejoin, so 2 disasters for Buchanan as he now joins at the very tail end of this pack. But can you go check that again?
Oh, Barroso's around! He spins in turn number 3, NASCAR bend, and just like that, what was going so well is now all down the toilet.
Yeah, that's a disaster. I don't know how he even got up that high that fast, but now look at this. Thompson is all the way up there too. How did he do that? So Thompson up to 4th in the orange car, just there behind Gagliardo. Sadiq is in a little bit of a gap, and Schickel has done exactly what I said at the beginning. If he can build this gap, he may have enough time to run away for 10 laps from the rest of these guys for a win. But Thompson having a huge start. He was all the way back in 5th to last, basically, way up in the 56 cars. He's going to now try to get Gagliardo almost wide off of South Bend. He's going to go to the outside, a high-risk maneuver on the first lap. Well, makes better of it.
Gagliardo was also missing the left-hand side, the driver's side mirror. It actually went rolling off into the gravel, or the grass rather, on that opening corner. There was some side-by-side contact. That's what sent Buchanan sideways into the grass, and that mirror is gone out of the Gagliardo's car. So if I'm Riley Thompson, this is a bad place to be. You're hoping they got the virtual mirror on, because if he's using the real ones, that's going to be really sketchy as they head down the backstretch at 150 miles an hour into the braking zone.
And he's later on the brakes. He's going to close the door, comes across the nose of Gagliardo, and gets the car stopped, but just as now the rest of the field started to string out. There's another driver with a great start, the 155 of Paul Darling at the back of your camera frame. He started 3rd to last and is way up to 7th, so he's picked up half the field right now.
And where are the drivers we're keeping our eyes on? Look at, wow, what a move! No, it's going to go wrong! Up and into the fence, the Armco bites Dan Newman. Just as I was going to say, the move that he was making, how epic it looked, it's over. Finian DeCuna's off, way off at Hog Pen. Now Kenton Cook putting pressure on Lapras. Lapras moves back to the right, dive under Montello into turn 1. In front of him, Gagliardo. Oh, roadblock down in turn 1.
Oh, and they all get through. That was nice avoidance right there. That was the battle for 10th, and now it's going to be for about 8th. Gagliardo from the front row to the back now as he got spun around on the nose of, that was Montello, I think, stuck with him. How did he do it, though?
Oh, it was contact from the 92 of Labance that turned him around. Everyone did a pretty good job. How Seal missed it, so did Kurt Crump.
That was Montello getting through behind.
Yep. Oh, this has been a very hectic race start. 2 laps in, look at Schickel trying to drive away. 2.3 seconds up the road from Sadiq, Thompson, Robillard. And now Thompson's the one we should probably be watching, Tom, with where he started. How about this? Started 12th up to 3rd.
Yeah, he got a lot of that done in the first 5 or 6 corners of lap 1, and I would love to go back and watch on how Barroso and Thompson both got up that high in just a couple corners, because there's not a lot of passing opportunities. But now Cook, it looks like he's just kind of camping behiin Lapras and letting Lapras pick the spots to get him through the field. Because again, I don't know that Kenton has a whole lot of information on this car as he's coming into the second round of this night, a little bit blind, but he's going to push Lapras down the back straight just a little bit. Careful not to bump draft. You can spin these cars out pretty easily. Now looks driver's left. He's going to pick the shallow line on the way into roller coaster. They're side by side. Robillard holding off Darling and Seal, but Kenton's going to get the job done into roller coaster. The 8 car goes up to now 8th position.
Let's go back and take a look at that race start. We wanted to see it, so let's go do it. On the initial start, how did those 2 drivers you were talking about get that run? Well, here is a look. We were looking for what drivers? You got to remind me off the top of my head.
Yeah, that was Barroso, the 15. So he started, I think, on the 5th row.
Here's what, oh, he just gets a pretty solid Let's speed this up a little bit here. You get a better idea of what the start looked like.
Looks like he came off the brake just at the perfect time. A good start from the outside row.
Oh, it was Buchanan moving left on Robillard and kind of threw the block there. And that's what stacked everybody up.
And I think Thompson just kind of came with him at this point, so he was all of a sudden finding himself battling for a podium spot in the first couple corners. Then he got that punt down into turn number 3.
And there's Thompson in the background kind of taking advantage of all the slipping and sliding going on. So back up live, there's Alex Barroso in 12th place now. Look at this fight up through the S's. That's Kirk Crum, Jackson Robillard side by side. That ain't gonna work. Crum over the curb, slides in front of Jackson Robillard. Kenton Cook watching from behind, hoping he doesn't get involved in any of this mess.
Man, well held by all these guys. That's so hairy with these cars. They make almost no downforces. You know, you would never know that they have any aero on them if you drove them through that track. But Robillard almost goes around in the middle of a oak tree and saves it somehow. These cars are impossible to save, and he does it anyway. Now Cook gets squeezed all the way to the grass. Whoa! Keeps his foot in it.
That was dicey. That was too close. Side by side down the backstretch. Drag race to roller coaster. Cook and Robillard involved in that, and that'll move Cook up to 7th spot if he can get the braking done here. It looks like he will. Robillard will have to give this up, and he will.
Yeah, but they lost a lot of time to Crum that time, so Crum with a super defensive move through the S's pays off for him, and he's bought himself a little bit of time. But speaking of buying time, Schickel now 2.5 seconds up the road still of 2nd place, which is a battle between Sadiq and Thompson. So Thompson's got one more car to go through. I have to imagine Thompson a little bit quicker on the road between the two, but
Thompson was 3/10 quicker last time by than both drivers in front. He'll go to the inside in turn number 1, and behind him he's got Paul Darling and Ken Ausil, so he has to run. They don't have a lot of time. I mean, 13 minutes seems like a lot of time, but it is not. He's going to try a big crossover here at the exit of NASCAR Bend, and Sadiq runs off into the grass. Well done move there. That looked like he planned that from a mile away.
Yeah, it was just a well-pressured, really. Sadiq had that huge push on the way through NASCAR and just allowed Thompson to drive through nice and easy, and now these guys have to worry about him. Darling and Hausil are going to set their sights on getting to the back of Tala Sadiq. And now it's 3.4 seconds from Schickel to Thompson.
This is crucial time for Schickel and Thompson right now. They need to run. They don't have any time to play around with any sort of traffic, and now that Thompson is through, he's just got to hit his marks because you have to gap the 23 of Ken Ausil. He and Darling put on such a big gap on everybody else that I don't know if they can even hold on to it at this pace. So Schickel might be okay, but Thompson certainly has some work to do if he wants to stay here.
Yeah, and looking back at qualifying for race number 1, actually, Thompson and Schickel qualified only 2/10 apart with a little bit of advantage to Riley Thompson. So that gap at the front is going to be really, really hard for Riley Thompson to shut because Schickel is near as makes no difference every bit as fast as the 56 car is. Now he has to really worry about Darling and Hausil if he gets through on Tala Sadiq.
Crum into 6th. Meanwhile, for 8th place, there's Jackson Robillard, Christopher Lapras, Zach Buchanan, and Alex Barroso. 4-car fight for an 8th place position as they head down the hill.
Robillard's had a lot of action this race, so he's taking a breather right now as he's got about a second gap between the cars in front and behind. Onto the front straight a little bit. Yeah, I heard gravel. Ooh, Buchanan's involved again with Lapras this time.
Go back
and calls it a day
and see how this started here. This was at the exit of the final corner down through Hog Pen. Just got in there too hot. I don't think he meant to do it there, Tom. Barroso did an excellent job getting stopped to miss it, but I think Buchanan just slightly misjudged that.
Yeah, maybe grabbed a little bit of gas or a little bit of clutch instead of brake as he kind of came through that compression. Here's another look at it. You're going to see the 183 get real big real fast as they drop into Hog Pen right there. Boom. Takes them both around.
And maybe the other car slowing Lapras might have overslowed a little bit, which could have also kind of triggered that collision. But for 3rd place, how about this 3-horse race up the S's?
These guys don't have any time to make this happen. They have to make it fast. Darling and Hausil, the 2nd and 3rd cars in the line. Tala Sadiq fighting it for everything he's got to stay in front of them, but they want to dispose of him as quickly as they possibly can, and they qualified a little bit over a second faster than Tala Sadiq did. So the pace definitely is in the hands of Hausil and Darling, but they've got Crum to worry about still behind them. 4 cars battling for 3rd right now at the front of this field.
Coming to halfway this time through, Schickel leads by 2.3 seconds over Riley Thompson. A farther 2 seconds back. That's the battle we're watching right now. 4 cars in a grouping for third. Not too far behind them, there's that pink car. That is Kenton Cook.
Man, this is going to get interesting. A 5-car battle for third with theoretically the slowest car of the group at the front of the line. Now Darling, look at him, already hunting side to side to side. He's going to try to go up the underneath of, no, thinks better of it on Sadiq. That's a really tough pass to make if you don't have a run. And Sadiq's going to hold this position one more time, but Darling's got a little bit of a run. He's going to have the draft as well. I have to imagine Sadiq is going to be under major attack when he gets to the brakes for turn number 1 here. Look at Cook also side by side now with Crum.
Side by side for third and for sixth as they head down into turn number 1. Darling way late on the brakes, flashes the lights to let him know he's coming. And Houseil's going to follow him through, bring Cook as well.
Darling is so even-keeled all the time. It's amazing to see him. If he breaks out the flashers, you know he means business. And now Cook is side by side with Sadiq as he's fighting to not lose a third position on this exchange. But he's going to have to give it up. Cook goes a little bit wide. These cars are scary in the grass. Whoa, 3 wide from Crum. No. Tucks back in, and now Cook finally gets the position done. But now Darling and Houseil, the class of this field on pace, have a little bit more time, little under halfway to make up 5 seconds on the leader, Evan Schickel, with Thompson still in the way halfway up the road.
Wow, what a sector that was for those 3 cars. They've gotten it sorted. For the lead, though, Riley Thompson is reeling in Schickel. Half a second a lap right now. So Schickel's time right now, that's enough pace to catch him at the pace that he's going. But Paul Darling, he is going to be coming with Houseil very, very quickly as well. Behind him, Crum is through to 6th on Sadiq. So I think my prediction is we're going to have a fight for the win, and I think that either Darling or Houseil is going to get it because Thompson's going to catch Schickel. They'll fight, and those other 2, the 3rd and 4th place cars, will catch them.
Have you ever seen those PR videos where they put like a street car and a race car and then a Formula 1 car and they start them on a stagger and they all finish at the same time? That's what's happening right here at the front. Schickel, Thompson, Darling, Houseil, they're all going to come together at the very same time and we're going to have this epic battle. That's what I predict, just like you said. As now Darling and Houseil hard on the brakes. They got to work together right now. They cannot afford to fight, and they're going to try to bring this fight to the front with Kenton Cook still clinging on to the back, now in 5th from the very, very last position, 17th at the start.
Working lap number 7 of 10 this time through. Schickel leads by 1.5 seconds over Thompson. Lap times at the line. For Schickel, it was a 1:55.5. Good time, but not as good as Thompson's 1:55.1. Behind them, Paul Darling, 1:55.0. Houseil, 1:55.0. Kenton Cook, 1:55.1. If you didn't think this was close before, it's about to get a whole lot better.
And remember, Darling and Houseil and Cook all ran those same lap times as Thompson while passing Tala Sadiq, so they have more pace in these cars. The 155, the 23, and the 8 are going to be the ones on the charge. Thompson, like I said, qualified pretty similarly to Schickel, so I have to imagine Schickel feeling a ton of pressure right now as he's found himself in the lead of one of these races for the first time this season, I think, and is just doing everything he can to maintain gap, but you can see it's visibly shrinking at this point. Already a half-second advantage to Thompson. It was 1.5 at the line. Now it's only 9/10. Ooh, it's going to get super tight here.
Oh, a little clumsy for Thompson over the curbing through the S's. Big jumps, big hops. The bump stops screaming for mercy as they head down to the oak tree here, Tom. And Thompson is closing, but he lost a little bit of time there at the tail end. Oh, big miss in the apex there in 11. And now he's perfected for 12 to get a better run out.
Yeah, he opened up that's going to be okay. He opened up the corner for the critical part of Oak Tree and gets a decent run off the corner. It's going to hold at about 1.1 seconds to Evan Schickel, but I'm going to watch the gap behind. It's 3.2, 3.1. It's going to be 3.0 next time they update. Darling and Houseil are closing.
Into the braking zone for roller coaster again. Darling, Houseil, Kenton Cook, all nice and tidily in line here. Co-opetition is the word I like to use as these guys fight this out. This time through 3 laps to go as Schickel heads through hog pen. His time is running out with Thompson catching at about 3 to 4 tenths a lap. Thompson will be there in about a lap and a half, maybe even less than that with the run he got out of hog pen there. But there's the 3 behind that I'd be worried about. Remember where these guys started? How about this, Tom? Paul Darling, 14th. Ken Houseil, 16th. Kenton Cook, 17th. 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
That's wild. And I was going to say at the front too, Thompson, you said he's catching about a half second a lap. I think it was close to a second that time. So right there, I'd call Thompson there. This is a battle for the lead right now.
Through NASCAR Bend into turn number 4, less than 3 laps to go in Radenso Sports Car Challenge Grand Sport race number 2. These 3 working together. I bet you they're all kind of conversing, and they know exactly what they need to do to catch these front two. Thompson, I think, is one they're worried about because I don't think they're catching Thompson quite quick enough to catch him on his own. But if he's stuck behind Schickel, that's a whole different story.
And the moment Thompson takes a look on Schickel, it's going to be a battle. It's going to bring those next three cars in line up real quick. So Thompson's job is to make quick work of Schickel, and Schickel's just going to do everything he can to run. Whoa, a huge moment for Halseal, a mistake we don't see very often. Gets all the way to the left side of the track coming over the S's. Yikes, and he's going to lose a little bit of time to Darling.
That was not something we didn't see Ken make a single mistake for the entirety of race number one. Right there, that was an important one. It cost him over a second to Paul Darling, and that could be crucial here.
And then Kenton Cook had a big wiggle at the apex of Oak Tree a couple corners later. So those two both lost significant time on this lap. And somehow, look at this, Schickel has rallied and put about a half second back on Riley Thompson at this point on the lap. I think it was about 6/10 at the line. It was 1.1 at one point down the straightaway here.
The gaps are a lot more even now, about a second between each driver in the top five right now. This time, 2 laps to go, 6 miles left for Evan Schickel to hang on. He had a technical issue in the race number one. He's got that resolved, but now 8/10 of a second is what he's got left to work with as he comes across the line. 2 laps to go, this time at VIR.
And hey, Kyle, have you leaned forward?
I'm leaning forward.
I have leaned forward. This is going to get good. Evan Schickel at the front. Riley Thompson closes that gap back down. It's only about a half a second right now as they get on the brakes for turn number one. And now, like you said, even spacing. Darling really opening up the entry to turn number one, but he's going to get a heck of a run off of turn one right there. See if he breaks out those flashers again, as he is now all focused on the orange and white of Riley Thompson.
The Simsa Esports driver in the 56 went right out of the gate at Circuit of the Americas, was competitive there. Earlier in the night, I was a little bit surprised we weren't seeing him fighting for the win, but here he is, tracking down Evan Schickel. He's been chipping away. Big moment there.
Yeah, caught the curb, and these cars do not like bumps. And as you saw, the car just started oscillating and almost got away from him. It was a really hairy moment. So just those little moments in these cars they feel like the biggest deal when you're dealing with them inside the cockpit.
That was the calm before the storm. Everybody's kind of evened out, but look at Darling. He's halved that gap between him and Thompson this lap alone. So I'm very confident Darling is going to get to Thompson. But Thompson's progress has seemingly slowed to get to Schickel. So is he out of time, Tom? He's still at 6/10 back with a lap and a half left.
He's not out of time, but I'm so impressed with Schickel's rallying of the pace. He seemed like he was really feeling the pressure for a couple laps in the middle of this race, and he's just kind of come to his own. I don't know that his pace has really picked up or if Thompson's has dropped off or what exactly has happened without seeing the timesheets, but the 33 car has stabilized this lead out just enough to now buy his way. He's going to lead across the line starting the final lap, I think, but who's leading at the finish is a whole different story.
Virginia International Raceway has been a site of some great racing tonight. A big moment there for Schickel over the hog pen curbs. Lost a lot of time. White flag in the air for Virginia International Raceway. Round number 5, Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Schickel, Thompson, drag racing down the front stretch. We're going to have a pass for the lead here, Tom. Thompson looks to the right, in the grass. No way he makes that work. He's found a hold of the inside lane. Backs out for turn one. Here comes Darling. Schickel runs wide. Thompson to the inside. They bump. They slam side by side for the lead through NASCAR 3.
And Schickel is going to drop behind Thompson, now coming into the lead for NASCAR corner. Darling is the next one on the radar, and he gets it's a good run for Darling through there. What's he going to do? Is he going to look inside? No, he tucks through. Now into Snake. This is the only spot on the track where you can really just chuck away a ton of time. You're not making up anything here, though.
Oh, that was a big cut there.
Curbs.
That might be a cut. If it wasn't, he was lucky. Running up through the S's now. Schickel is back to second. Can he grab the lead back from Riley Thompson? The white flag is out. It's the last run up through the S's here at VIR.
All the curb and more on the first one. Don't forget about Ken Halseal, the red car at the back of frame. These guys are so fast up through the S's. Dragging brakes through South Bend. Halseal looks really strong through there. On the brakes for Oak Tree. This is the last drafting opportunity.
Sideways through Oak Tree. He hangs onto it. Schickel's loose as well. Here comes Darling with a run for second place. An unbelievable save by Thompson. That was a crash. He got it back rolling, and he's running away. He's trying to, but Paul Darling to second.
God, I don't know how he did that, but he used one of his lives right there, I'll tell you that. Darling gets the move easily done on Schickel, who had to check up for Thompson.
Here comes Schickel back on Darling. Can he get there? Darling right into the tailpipes of the 56. Down the hill. Ken Seal bullies his way to the inside of third place. Schickel can't get the job done there. Darling right behind Riley Thompson. It'll take a mistake to get the job done. Here he is through Hog Pen. Getting a run. He's got it. Gonna be a drag race in line. Final corner. Checkered flag waving. Here they come. At Virginia International Raceway, to the line, Thompson, Darling, door to door, banging doors, fender to fender, Darling, I think got it. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. By 7 thousandths of a second. Unbelievable.
And they were making contact the entire time. 7 thousandths of a second victory for Paul Darling, that makes his 4th win on the season. For the 155 car.
Kidding me?
Oh my God.
I can't believe what we just saw. Here's a look. I think we need to take a look at this. I'm just bewildered, astonished. I have no words.
There we go. Darling looks to the outside. He knows he's got the run. And at some point, these two start to make contact. It looks like they're both perfectly straight right now on a little bit different trajectory. They touch. And somehow it slows Thompson down just enough. That is what 7 thousandths of a second, 0.007 looks like to get Paul Darling his 4th win on the season for the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. And Riley Thompson, being a factor the entire season, misses out once again, still goes winless on the year. Ah, man, there's the touch. And at this point, they're crashing.
That is, I think, the
Unreal.
best finish I think I've ever seen in sports car racing here in iRacing. An unbelievable finish. Darling snags it and denies Riley Thompson a victory in the SimCity Sports Car. Wow. Let's have a look at our results. Take a breath. Oh.
I mean, can't say enough also how impressed I am with Evan Schickel to hang on for 3rd right there with Ken Seal heavily under attack. Kenton Cook coming from the back with Ken and Paul Darling to get all the way up there. That was, I mean, you guys did a highlight reel for the best races of all time on Sim TV. This one's got to go to the top, right?
I think that goes right to the top. And VIR, again, this is a racetrack that I think a lot of people might underrate here within the iRacing service, but there's a reason why you shouldn't do that. I mean, that last corner, it doesn't seem like it would set you up for something like that, but it's so mistake prone. And for Thompson, he was so perfect. I mean, the big mistake was down at Oak Tree, and he recovered from that. But it was the little bobble in Hog Pen that did it for Thompson. That was what let Darling get alongside and beat and bang. That was some NASCAR style stuff there.
Yeah, and I can't believe. I'm sure neither of them can believe what just happened for the good for Darling and for the bad for Thompson. But someone go tell the TCR guys they got something to live up to. We're coming to them next.
All right, we're coming up next. TCR race number 2, the final race of the evening. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back live to Sim TV. We just took a little bit of a break to calm down after what was an incredible 7 thousandths of a second finish in the Grand Sport race, the final GS race of the evening. But now, Tom, we head to TCR. They had a good race in their first race, but they have a lot to live up to now in their final race of the night.
I don't think we've had a bad show from TCR this whole season, but the whole spectrum for what is a good show just changed for me. It was one of the best races I've ever seen, real or sim. And we're moving on to TCR, the final race of the night from VIR. We're inverting the top 14 drivers for this race, so it's not a full field invert as it was for GS, but that's going to put Louis Alessi in the 43 car up on the pole for what I believe is his first pole position in the Radenso Sports Car Challenge. There he is, a great-looking car, alongside Francis Castillo Romero, but a couple of the guys to watch that are now going to start on the second row side by side, the 89 of Kyle Herbst and the 88 of Eric Mickey. This is going to be interesting because those two are always fast and they always have to start at the back for race 2 because they do so well. This time they get to start towards the front finally for a race number 2.
So Kyle Herbst in race 1 had a lot of pace, but also had a lot of problems. And this was, again, he was coming off a suspension after some issues at Watkins Glen, who sat out Road Atlanta. He's back, and he's back right up with the pace that he had before, but found himself kind of, sometimes through the bat, sometimes through the ball. He was the bat in turn 1, the ball in turn 3, and a couple more times throughout the rest of race 1. So looking for some redemption, starting out front with clean track in front of him. He's certainly a threat to win this race, but points leader Eric Mickey also starting on the front row. Ooh, it's going to be tough between those two.
Yeah, and you referenced points leader. He had about a 44-point lead coming into this round. If you're not counting drops, we'll do drops at the end of the season. He actually lost over half of that to Andrew Pilata. Now it's down to 12. So he lost a huge chunk of points after a total mess exiting the Oak Tree corner in the last race. And that's kind of the first slip up we've seen from Mickey. He's been just the best decision maker along with one of the fastest cars this entire season. So he is fallible. The rest of the TCR field just saw that, and now they're going to get to deal with him starting at the front because of it in race 2 tonight.
Yeah, and so sometimes, what looks like a curse can actually be a little bit of a gift. So that'll put Mickey right up on the front row. So warm-up almost complete here. And you'll take a look at the time here, and it's a little bit later in the day, just after 7 o'clock Eastern or for Virginia International Raceway. The track surface, this is the big one, Tom, 73 degrees Fahrenheit. How does that 20-degree drop in surface temperature change these cars for the second race?
It's tough to put into words how much of a difference that makes for these cars, especially on a front-wheel drive touring car that you're putting all of the effort, all of the work to the ground through 2 tires, through 2 contact patches. When you have 20 degrees less surface temperature forcing those tires to lose grip, it's going to be a very different game. And these guys have been practicing in warm weather the entire week. They've been racing in warm weather all night, and now they get to finally kind of have a little bit of cool weather. They're going to have some fast laps, but also just a different dynamic. You see the field gritting up. Another driver that's going to be interesting to watch is Brad Adams, who actually got disconnected because of a power surge in race number 1. So he's going to be looking for redemption. But the final car I'm definitely going to point out is Andrew Pilata, who had our first runaway, really, of the Radenso Sports Car Challenge season. We haven't really had somebody just check out and just drive the heck away from the field like he did. And he did. So that 14 car is going to be one to watch, coming from all the way back in 14th position.
Yeah, if you think back to Watkins Glen, remember the big collision that was between turns 1 and 2 at that racetrack, the big one. He was involved in that, came back to win that race, and it was after the 89 and the 999, the Kyle Herbst and Caleb John Lavender got together in the bus stop chicane. Those two will start nose to tail for this race here. So we'll see if that we'll see if history repeats itself, but it will be the 43 on pole for the second race of the night for TCR. And I think this is, again, as you mentioned, this is one of the most beautiful paint schemes in this entire field. The blue, the white, the yellow. It's a good looking race car.
Yeah, I don't know what that sponsor is, and I'm afraid to pronounce it, but the car's really pretty. And I was going to say Caleb John Lavender is going to be another guy to watch because the kind of trio starting in 3rd, 4th, and 5th of Kyle Herbst, Eric Mickey, and Caleb John Lavender, those guys are all front runners in their own right. Then we've got a couple of newer faces. Will Robbins had an awesome race 1 tonight, and he was involved in the same incident that put Eric Mickey so far back. So he's going to be fun to watch starting a little further forward. And then it's Chris Harp and Tyler Jones on the next row. Each had their own incidents in race 1. Ryan Carwile, I mean, let's just keep, this is another one of those situations where you could have told me this was the genuine qualifying order, and I, for the most part, would have believed you. This is just a stacked field.
There's Brian Adams bringing up the rear here in his GLTC and Grid Life sponsored number 21 car. This will be fun to watch him from the tail here. I'm sure he'll have a post-race report after tonight after he drives through what is an inevitable issue here at the race start. We have a lot of aggression tonight, but for the most part, we've seen really clean racing. We've seen a little bit of bumping and banging here and there, but the elbows get out this late in the night. We've seen a lot of racing. These guys are pumped up. A lot of them probably just watched the GS race, so they got the blood flow and the testosterone pumping. I'd be a little bit worried if I'm mid-pack right now. Be careful heading down into the first corner.
I'm not going to add to the commentator's curse at all. I think this is going to be a great clean race, and I can't wait to get it underway. This will be really fun to watch. Two guys that we have not seen on the front row in Lewis and Francis do what we just saw Evan Schickel do. Try to check out early while the rest of the guys are working their way through the field and build that gap. I don't think they're going to have the same opportunity because two of the fastest cars in this field are starting right behind them.
Going to be tight, going to be a really good race. We'll have 10 laps. This will be our final race of the night. Stick around post-race if you want to hear from some of the winners tonight, and you bet that we're going to talk to Riley Thompson and Paul Darling about their GS Race 2 finish. So stick with us after the completion of this race. Deeper in the field, Ryan Christoph going to start mid-pack in 10th. We'll keep an eye on him. He was running up inside the top 5 until that last lap collision coming out of Oak Tree, so looking for redemption for him. Same thing with Dylan Broyles in the 818. He ended up finishing really solid in the first race of the night, so I think we'll pretty good eye of how he'll run here. But he's going to have to hold off Andrew Pilata because we knew Pilata was a little bit quicker towards the end of that race.
Yep. Broyles was battling for a podium position, had an incident that put him way back, and he drove through the field to podium anyway. He finished third. So he's the only driver in this entire field, really, who's actually driven through the field once already tonight. So he got a little bit of practice doing that. Going to have to come back from 11th right now to do it again.
Down through turn 16 and into 17, that's Hog Pen. And we're going to turn him loose for 10 laps. In the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, this is the completion of round number 5. We'll be off next week, so make sure you find us on Winding Road Magazine's YouTube channel for the next round, the third round of the Spec MX-5 Sim Racing Challenge from the Charlotte Roval. Then the week after will be Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot, Belgium for Radenso Sports Car Challenge, round number 6. Green flag flies, racing for the final time tonight with the TCRs at VIR.
Single file across the start-finish line, just like we want to see, and now they go to war. Kyle Herbst has the run at the inside of Francis Luis Castillo. Romero and turns him just a little bit. Castillo doesn't give him any room at all.
Oh, the leader's
coming
off.
into turn number 1, and now Louis Alessi runs wide too. Christoph gets a turn from Broyles in the background, but they're going to salvage this one. Alessi stays off track, and look at the run around the outside from Lufer. That is coming across the nose of Roman, and he's going to pick up a couple of spots on this start. So Kyle Herbst is going to go to the lead after getting squeezed to the inside on the first corner. He keeps control of the car and inherits an early lead with Caleb John Lavender right behind him. Now side by side for Mickey and Jones coming through the snake.
Eric Mickey is really the one to watch now. Puts himself into third place. Now going to have to run down the front too. Kyle Herbst and Caleb John Lavender. A bit of a messy start down there in turn 1 and 2 for Francis Castillo Romero and Louis Alessi in the 43. Side by side for Adams. He went from 19th to 14th in the first set of corners. A little bit of a bump there with Andrew Mickey. He's on through. Put him up to the 14th spot. Now down through South Bend for the first time. Herbst and Caleb John Lavender lead us there.
And these two were both the front runners at Watkins Glen at points, and they're back battling once again. Whoa, a big slide for Lavender. Oh, tags the inside wall. He got it loose on the way into Oak Tree and couldn't collect it up. Bounces off the inside wall that's no longer there. It's still here in iRacing, and he had to deal with it, and now drops way back. That's going to put Herbst 2.2 seconds up the road from second place now, which is Eric Mickey.
Just like that, move the 88, the points leader, into second place. A bit of a rub there for the right front on the 999. We'll see if that affects the car at all. I'm sure it might have a little bit of effect on the suspension. Oh, Will Robbins gets turned, and he's going to slam Carwell. Going to go down the hill, take Broyles out with him.
Oh, man. It sucks to crash, but it sucks being a bystander even more with that kind of incident. And I don't know if that was actually started by Carwile or... Yeah, it looks like Carwile just kind of punted Robbins, and then Robbins came back across the track. If it was just the two of them, it would have been mostly no harm, no foul, but unfortunately comes back across the track to collect Broyles, who had the epic drive in race number 1, and he's going to be more or less out of it for race 2. Actually, Broyles had just gotten into the back of Harp, too, so there was a little bit of a mess going on across all 4 of those cars. But look at that alignment all messed up on the back end of the 818.
I can't imagine it's going to be a lot of fun to drive, and it's just a helpless feeling. You see those cars start to spin, and you know that they're going to come for you, but there's nowhere to go. If you go off track, you go off the pavement, it's a wild ride. Christoph and Lupfer side by side. That's a pass for 6th into turn 4.
Christoph, I think, started 10th, so he's one of the big movers so far, as is Lupfer. They finished side-by-side in race number 1, and now they're still side-by-side, having worked their way through the field together at this point. Roman and Pallotta are still with them, too. So Pallotta, surprisingly, still, I mean, he started 14th. He's up to, what is that, 9th or 10th, but not making a huge amount of progress so far for the 14 car.
Well, now he's got some cars to take out, and as you see, Lupfer track out a little bit wide in South Bend, now into the run into Oak Tree. Cars still slipping and sliding, tires not quite up to temp. Christoph was a little wide as they head under the tree. That guy was real tight there with Elias Roman in front.
Yeah, big moment for Christoph, and tight stuff between these two on your screen, now drafting down the back straightaway. These cars lined up about 6 deep nose astern, so there's not going to be a whole lot of draft for Pallotta to work with, but he's going to try anyway. Now looks left. Oh, he gets a little bit of a block from Roman. Roman gets one move, that's all fair. Comes back across the track, and Christoph deep on the brakes to cross Chris Harp, and Chris Harp's trying to over-under now. Not going to get an opportunity to do it as he's dealing with Lupfer behind in the Wins car, trying to come for him a little bit.
Nice clean passes there. Car off the track in front. That's Tyler Jones out of 4th in the Lazarus E-Sport car. He's going to lose a spot, maybe 3, maybe 5, as the whole field comes to take advantage of him there with that little slip-up in 17.
Yeah, and that's going to promote Christoph all the way up to 3rd. Now Harp goes through to 4th. Look at Lupfer. He's looking racy on Harp. He's going to go deep on the brakes down into turn number 1.
Oh, that was tight.
Holy cow, almost loses the back end, but gets it under control. Jones now touches the back of Harp, and look at the 36 car's gotten pretty much everybody into the back of him at this point in this race. But he's holding on nice and strong for 6th.
Now we're on to turn number 4. I see Brad Adams back there. He's up inside the top 10 and starting at the tail of the field. Good run for him. Kyle Herbst up front, though. 1.7 second lead, but he was a half a second slower than Mickey at the line last time. But Caleb John Lavender was just as quick. And you see the group behind him. Christoph 4th and Lupfer leading a huge train in 5th.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was watching that gap as well, and Herbst had about a 2.5 second lead, but now as things have calmed down, Mickey's been able to put his head down. Even though Mickey's probably not the fastest car on this track overall, he's the fastest car at the front, and he's going to bring Lavender with him. Now, if Lavender's smart, he'll lay back and just kind of sit there until he brings this battle to Herbst and then take his attack. But those 3 on the top, I think we're going to see this one come together similarly to the way we saw the GS race come together. Look at this battle. This is 4th through 10th all in one frame. Holy, doing some awesome nose to tail running right now.
So now the lap times are crucial for Kyle Herbst to be nailing, because he's got 2 drivers in behind that look like they're drafting quite nicely. Look at the front of the 89, though. A little bit of damage potentially on the lower nose of that car. I know there was some contact in turn number 1 with Kyle Herbst. I'm not sure how much that's affecting him. Doesn't look like it's a lot, but it's certainly not helping.
No, yeah, a little sneer on the front of that car, and I think that was just when Alessi gave him the squeeze. I don't think Alessi even meant to give him the squeeze, really. It's just kind of really tight stuff down into turn number 1, and left a little bit of damage on the front. Probably not doing anything in straight line much between the two, as Harp now succumbs to the pressure and runs wide at Hog Pen, coming onto the front straightaway. So we lost one of those cars out of the battle for 4th. It's down to only 7 cars instead of 8.
There's Tyler Jones on the inside of Elias Roman through turn number 1. Give Jones a spot, move Roman back. That was real close to the track edge. There's Andrew Pallotta in the 14, and Brad Adams up to 9th place.
Yeah, did you see Pallotta in the background just throwing the 14 into turn number 1 at a huge amount of rotation? And Pallotta, a ton of autocross experience in a variety of cars. Currently has a Honda Civic Type R being ready, prepped for autocrossing. So this is some front-wheel drive prep for him. He's now completely attached to the back of Elias Roman.
Now the run up the S's here at the front of this group is Ryan Christoph. He's 4th, and Lupfer in 5th. Jones, Roman, Pallotta, and Adams. That's the next group. Working our way towards halfway, this final race of the night. And something I wanted to touch on with Kyle Herbst's car. You see him go for a bit of a slide through Oak Tree. Look at the front of this car. Notice something about the headlights? They're not working. They're broken. think about this next week at Spa-Francorchamps. If you break your headlights, you're not going to be able to see anything. You'll have to come in and get that fixed, Tom. So that's going to promote next week. You're going to have to run cleaner. You won't be able to see where you're going. Andrew Chow has gone around in turn number 11. That's over by Oak Tree.
Making sure he gets that camera time for his sponsor right there. Just a little deep on the way in. I might have dragged some dirt, as we saw drivers do in the previous round.
Just kind of hit the curb on the inside bounce.
Curb, yeah.
And then caught the wall with the left front. Was able to pull off the track. You can see the damage on that left front tire.
Yeah, good awareness. That's great to see when someone just gets out of the way. And now we're back between Andrew Mickey and Dylan Broyles, who's trying to come back through this field. He's almost back to the top 10. This is his charge to 10th. And he's a championship contender here, so any position counts for something. As Mickey almost runs wide off of Hogpen, you see just how hard those cars slam through the compression there. But this is now back up to what is the battle for 4th through 9th. It's a whole lot of red and white in that frame when we focus on that battle.
Oh, there they go. They're wide. Elias Roman's off. Palada's also wide. Adams slides to the inside lane. He'll take 6th spot. That was opportunistic, and he's got it.
I wonder if that was just aggressive moves from Palada or aggressive defending from Roman. It looks like
defending for sure.
Palada was just super deep. No, I think Palada saw the lane, and as soon as Roman went to the brakes, he moved a little bit. Let's see it one more time from above.
Oh yeah, a little bit late. It looked for a moment
aggressive for Palada.
It looked for a moment like the 99 had moved over, but you're right. And then Palada tried to turn back in, and Adams was there, so moved Brad Adams up to 6th. That was just a miscalculation by Palada. That's going to set him back quite a bit. You know, who isn't set back right now is Kyle Herbst. He continues to drive away. 3.3 second lead now over Eric Mickey, who is your current points leader, sits 2nd, and Caleb John Lavender keeping tight with him. Bit of a bobble in Oak Tree for Mickey. He runs wide.
Mickey is not agreeing with Oak Tree tonight. He just does not like that corner. We've seen him have that moment a couple times across race 1 and now race 2, and he's just not able to get away from Lavender. Now, I'm impressed with Herbst's ability to kind of rally this one, and he had lost almost a second to Mickey, and now he's put 3 seconds on them. So he's just kind of driving away. 2 checkouts in one night in TCR, or is that what we're seeing?
Looks like it, but the battle right now isn't for the lead. It's for 2nd for the moment, and also for 4th. Although that battle has started to fizzle, but it's kind of staying alive in packs around the racetrack. Here's Francis Castillo Romero. He's missing 1 of his 2 headlights. There's Chris Hart to the inside. Bit of a touch. Oh, they're going to crash.
Oh, yeah, big slide for both of these guys. They go almost all the way to the wall for Romero. Harp had a couple of dramas so far this race, but he's going to get back to the track first, and they're just in front.
There's a look.
Was that Brad Adams just in front? No.
Brad Adams is up in 7th. Oh, yeah, Adams slid back to 7th. Lupfer went back to 6th. There's the issue there. I don't know what happened with those two, but Adams has somehow gone behind. Palada again. Lupfer's gone to 6th.
Palada with the slide job up into turn number 1. Adams going to come back at him from the underside. Gets the over-under, but now it becomes the over once again for NASCAR corner. Turn number 3, they're going to go side-by-side into here. Ooh, Adams pushing it big time, but now finally has to back out of it. Comes back at Palada one more time. And Palada was the class of the field for race number 1, but hasn't been able to put that stamp on race number 2 as he's had kind of cars in his way, figuratively and literally, this entire race, but now gets a little bit of breathing room up the track to Lupfer, and that's only for 6th place for Palada this race.
I'm not thinking those two are going to write each other Christmas cards with the last lap and a half of racing we've seen. Getting very physical between those two red Audi RS3 TCRs as they head up the hill towards Oak Tree and South Bend. And Max Lupfer gapping them slightly, but no changes up in the front. But Ryan Kristoff now has Tyler Jones on his rear wing as they head down the back straight.
Ooh, a good run out of Oak Tree. That was a couple of car lengths that he put on Jones exiting that corner. And I don't remember exactly what happened to Jones in race number 1, but he was a good qualifier, and something happened to put him back further in the running, and he's now rallying for race number 2 to have a good result. Now you see the draft kick into place. They come over the final crest. They're going to break just past that arrow right there. There you go. Deep on the brakes into roller coaster. The back end floating all over the place, but you're fine as long as the front end stays hooked up, and now the run down towards the front straightaway.
Elias Roman and Dylan Broyles into roller coaster. These two having a good battle, but I think Broyles is a little bit quicker.
Yeah, for sure. Broyles, remember, he was fighting for 2nd place at one point in race number 1. then had some couple moments. It's an interesting choice of suit colors inside the 818. I thought those were bare feet for a second, but they're just pink shoes. As now here comes Jones up the outside of Christoph, trying to make the long way happen, and he may actually get it. Look at this move from the 26. He's going to have a little bit more momentum on his side, but now Christoph's going to be able to shut the door, slams it hard for turn number 3.
And if you can maintain the outside line through turn 1, you generally get rewarded with a couple left-handers to help you complete the pass, but it's so difficult to make that stick. But Christoph hangs on for now. All this is happening a long ways back from third place Caleb John Lavender and second place Eric Mickey, and even farther behind the leader, Kyle Herbst, who's making his return after sitting out at Road Atlanta. What would it be for him to come and win a race at VIR coming back after his suspension? That would be an excellent night for him.
Yeah, wouldn't get any better than that, and he's just continuing to put in fast lap and fast lap, pull about half a second per lap on the drivers behind, and it looks like a lot of it's happening right here in this camera shot in Oak Tree. There's just something about this corner that is kind of making or breaking.
Second place off. Sorry there, Tom.
No, once again, Mickey's just not agreeing with Oak Tree tonight. Has an issue, and I think it was by himself because I don't see any damage yet, just deep. And the 88 car goes for a ride. Luckily stays out of the wall. You see how close the wall is there. And now back to third.
It's actually pretty deceiving how fast you come into that corner. If you go off in turn 11 heading up to Oak Tree, that is a bad place to go wide. You'd think because it's a slow corner, there's, the hits wouldn't hurt, but it's a pretty fast entry to a slow corner. So you miss your braking point and go off there, you're going to hit pretty hard.
Yeah, you're coming in these cars about 110 miles an hour off of South Bend, and you get that downhill run with a little bit of gravity assistance to pick up that extra tiny bit of speed. So you crash just that harder if you miss it. But really fun section of track is now Jones still rallying. He can see a podium now. Christoph and Jones both maybe within striking distance of a bronze medal if they can. Luis Alessi goes around once more.
Just got out of the way of Francis Casilla Romero, and Alessi was our pole sitter in this race. Was there contact maybe with the 36 of Chris Hart? No, just overcooks it.
Like it. Yeah, got behind, got the back end, got away from him, and if he put his foot down, he probably would have gone off track, but not spun. And these drive cars, and just barely missed by Francis Romero.
Well done there for both those drivers to avoid a collision. Pilata and Lupfer. Pilata has been so distracted with fighting these guys midfield, he hasn't really been able to climb up nearly as far as I thought he would have. Meanwhile, Kyle Herbst, okay, he's back. There was just internet discontinuity, no worries. Looked like he had dropped the pit lane for a second. But Pilata.
Don't scare me like that.
Sorry, Pilata, 6th place. I thought he'd be a little higher up the order. Here he is still hanging on to a P6.
I think that speaks to the depth of field here. I mean, we've made the joke multiple times that you could invert the top 10 and we would believe that that's just the qualifying order because we've had so many front runners at different points in this race. All of these drivers are so hard to pass that when you're the fastest car on track, yeah, you can start to drive away by a couple of tenths or maybe a second a lap even, as we saw Pilata do in race number 1. But none of these guys are an easy race, and he's finally worked his way almost to top 5 from 14th. That's a heck of a drive, but like you said, not exactly the charge that we maybe expect from some of the other rounds that we've seen.
You see the undulations, the elevation change heading into roller coaster, and there's Christoph hanging on to 4th. Tyler Jones in 5th. I'm not sure we've seen the end of this battle yet. This time through will be 2 laps to go for Kyle Herbst. Caleb John Lavender has eaten into Kyle Herbst's lead. It's now 2.7 seconds, so let's keep an eye on these front two as they come across the line. 2 laps to go.
I think it was close to 5 seconds at the beginning of this lap. So something happened with Herbst, and we saw him make his own mistake in race number 1. He was pushing hard and trying to get back up to the front, and look at that. The front end of the 89 car is not happy. He had a ton of push at turn in right there. I don't think it's going to be enough to bring Lavender and Mickey back to the battle for 1st, but it's certainly going to be a distraction for Herbst to deal with as these guys battle away for 4th on back.
We're going to keep an eye on the sector times for Kyle Herbst as well and see if he loses any more time to Caleb John Lavender in this next lap or so. I think Caleb John Lavender is going to be within really 1.2, 1.3 seconds before he can convince me that he's got a legitimate chance at least drafting up and taking the win away from Kyle Herbst, so we'll keep an eye on it. There, you see him off in the distance. The battle right now is for 4th. Christoph, Tyler Jones, Andrew Pilata, Max Lupfer all together in this battle for P4.
man, so much pressure on these drivers right now, and it's easy enough to defend through most of this track, but there's that long back straight where they have so much drafting coming into effect, and these cars can't even bump draft a little bit. If you're Pilata or Lupfer, if you want to kind of spark a flame, no. Look at this, Pilata outside of Jones. Yikes, and that's going to open the door for Lupfer. Lupfer's going to push the issue. They're going to touch a little bit on the way into Oak Tree, but side by side off. Now it's a drag race between these two. I was going to say if these two want to feel a little cheeky and push Jones into a battle with Kristoff, they could spark that fight, but they decided to pick a fight for themselves.
Every man for himself here at VIR. No co-opetition going on right now. It's just all competition, and Lupfer can't complete that pass this time through, so he'll tuck back in line, give Pilata room to race down into roller coaster. Tyler Jones still putting pressure on Ryan Kristoff. Not sure we've seen the end of this. Herbst has picked his pace back up. Whatever slowed him down the lap before is not affecting him this time through. John Lavender 3.4 back. Then it's Eric Mickey in third, half a second back from the 999. This time through, white flag in the air for the race leader. Kyle Herbst has 1 lap to go to rebound with a race win.
Sour than sweet, as you may say, based on the livery for that. Race 1 and race 2 for Kyle Herbst. 1 lap to go for him, but this battle's not done. Kristoff doing an amazing job defending 4th place on Tyler Jones. Andrew Pilata and Lupfer have stopped bickering between the two, and they now focus forward a little bit on that battle for 4th. Any one of these guys could come across the line in 4th, as we saw in race number 1. We thought we were watching the battle for 3rd, and then out of nowhere, the guy in 8th finished 3rd. So this is going to get interesting, as now Kristoff looks like he's fighting the front end of that 46 car a little bit on turn N. Starts to miss a couple of apexes. Go ahead.
I'm really angry at you that you came up with the sour then sweet thing, because that's so good, and I'm so mad that you figured it out, not me.
That's okay. You got hippity hoppity. Your curbs are my property. They hippity hop. They hippity hop up the S's, and now Kristoff all still missing a couple of apexes. It's not hurting him too bad, but it's going to give Caleb John Lavender one more opportunity to charge down this back straight under the draft as Mickey runs wide once again at Oak Tree.
Kristoff sideways at Oak Tree, 3 wide again, and they're all going to bump and bang. Here comes Lupfer up the middle.
And Lupfer's going to push Pilata. We saw it 2 for 2 on the final lap in this round. These guys just get together on the exit of Oak Tree, and now it's a drag race 2 against 1, though.
That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna get out of here without crashing. Look at Lupfer looking drivers right. Does he make it 3 wide? We're gonna do it. 3 wide, touch. They're all gonna wipe out.
Pilata's gonna go for a ride. Oh, Lupfer saves him, and somehow Jones gets away with it. Where does Lupfer come back on track? No, he comes across the nose, and now it's still Pilata now just driving into. They're still going on. Foot to the floor, trying to hang on to her, and now Kristoff runs wide. Somehow Pilata gets through with it. What?
What happened? I don't know. It's like they just put an oil slick down there. Kyle Herbst wins the race. John Lavender to 2nd. Mickey in 3rd. What the heck? For 4th. There goes Lupfer. Wow.
Lupfer got the run because Pilata, all those guys decided when they started bumping and bagging down the back straight, forget this. They just started hitting each other, just straight up hitting each other, and they couldn't get over it until the final little bit as Brad Adams, he wanted a part of it. He didn't have enough fun. It's like, hey, I want to get in there. But if we go back and see that, I think they just started trying to run into each other at some point, and they couldn't get away from it.
I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. I mean, it was at the top of the, really, it was on the straight, well, it all started back at Oak Tree, really. But then they get into roller coaster. Lupfer on the right, he touches Pilata. Pilata and the 29 get together. That tank slaps the Lupfer car, and he's going to come back across track, slide into Pilata. Then these two get together, and Pilata just will not give the 29 space.
Yeah, that's when they were like, forget it, we're just hitting each other. And Kristoff thinks he's fine. Now he runs off the track.
Oh my goodness.
Pilata's still just doing everything he can to stay on track. At some point, after just kind of running Jones off the track, I think. And now somehow, after going for that wild ride, Lupfer had the run.
Well, that was something.
I think we should ride with Lupfer on that one more time. That was insane.
All right, let's ride on board Lupfer. Here we go.
See, he's got the touch from Pilata, goes for the ride, and he's going to disappear out of this battle for just a second. Gets clobbered. Now he's just trying to save it while those two are just hitting each other. They're just straight up dooring, and he comes back on track. And this run that it's kind of crystal clear
There's just cars everywhere.
The clear run through Hogpen is what gave him the opportunity to now have. Look at that run he's got.
I think Pilata might have had to slow down to give up time because he was really off throttle.
Yeah, maybe.
But I want to go back from another angle and see as they came down the hill. This looks like a rally cross race or something. The track limits? What limits? It's grass. Let's use it. Look at that. 3 wide, bumping and banging, slamming doors. Christoph goes for a wild slide down the hill. They come out of Hogpen. Just everywhere. Cars everywhere. Behind him, there's Brad Adams, and he came to the line. I think he had a pretty good race to the checkered with Elias Roman. This is a 35 thousandths of a second differential at the line. Look at this, 3 wide or almost 3 wide. This is coming to the checkers for what was 8th place. Look at that. Wow.
Trying to match that GS battle we had, and they're all touching across the line as well. Brad keeps his foot in it and goes for another one of these drifts. This is Brad's thing now. He's got a little post-race drift sesh in the TCR car all the way to the wall in turn 1, no matter where we are.
All right.
Brad, your challenge next week, Eau Rouge. Can't wait to see it.
Let's take a look at the race winner. It's the TCR driver Kyle Herbst in the 89. He'll take the win over Caleb John Lavender, Eric Mickey, Max Lupfer, Andrew Pilata somehow grabs the top 5 after all that. Christoph got roughed up in Oak Tree. He goes back to 6th. Tyler Jones, Elias Roman, Brad Adams, and Dylan Broyles round out your top 10. That was a wild night. I think that was probably the most action we've seen on track. I'm sure there's going to be some people upset, some people very happy, as there always is after some sports car racing, Tom, but elbows out tonight for sure.
Yeah, good return for Kyle Herbst, and I think we kind of forgot that epic battle, or epic whatever you want to call that, was for 4th, because up at the top, Herbst, Lavender, and Mickey, another great points race for Mickey, and he's going to be able to drop that kind of disastrous race number 1 at the end of this season. I think we dropped 3 races, I believe, and that's certainly going to be one of them, and another good points rally for the 88 car, and then that awesome battle. We're 2 for 2 on race 2s tonight with Lupfer, Pilata, Christoph, and Jones bringing home quite the show in TCR.
I'll say it was quite the show. We're not quite done yet. We have to jump to break, grab a couple drivers to talk to and interview them. We're certainly going to talk to those that were involved in the great finish in GS Race 2, so just hang tight. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Welcome back live to Sim TV and the Radenso Sports Car Challenge, round number 5. We're here with our race winner, Kyle Herbst, the number 89 Sour Patch Kids car. Tom O'Gorman put it best, sour than sweet for the 89 tonight. Kyle, after the suspension at Road Atlanta, you came back strong. Some damage, some bumps and bruises here and there, but you came home to win race number 2. Walk us through your night.
Well, race 1 was kind of a little bit of frustrating, especially considering, the suspension and everything, and clean racing, and kind of getting, in my opinion, punted off in NASCAR on a first lap was kind of frustrating. So, mentally I was kind of thrown off the first race. I kind of just wanted to check out, and so I decided to stick around for race 2 and try to, keep a little bit cleaner. Try to protect a little bit more in the first lap and just try to put my laps in because I knew the pace was there.
In a couple weeks, we head over to Spa-Francorchamps. That's a much faster racetrack, a little bit wider. How do you think the racing's going to look? Do you think it's going to look any different than what we saw tonight, or more of the same with that elbows out, bumps and bruising?
You're going to see probably a lot of drafting, especially in the TCR crowd. I think tire management's going to be really important there, especially with a couple wide sweepers and everything. I think people are going to be falling off their tires really quick. So I think it's almost going to be, even though it's a sprint race, just kind of tire management up until the last couple of laps and just kind of picking when you want to make your move.
Tom, anything for race 2 winner Kyle Herbst?
Yeah, we saw there was one lap in the middle where it looked like you had about a 5-second lead built up and somehow it dropped back to about 2.2 seconds. Was there a moment in race 2 that you had a little an issue, or was it us watching the wrong gaps, or was there a moment where you had to kind of re-rally and start to charge again at the front?
It was a computer issue. For whatever reason, my screen decided to freeze, and so luckily it froze in the right area.
Yikes!
And luckily I had a gap built up where it really didn't kill me too much.
Nice.
All right, Kyle Herbst, race 2 winner here from Virginia International Raceway. Kyle, congratulations. We'll see you at Spa.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Moving on now to... I'm going to drag both of these guys in here because I feel like we should talk to them both at one time. Paul Darling and Riley Thompson. Hey, guys, you guys had an excellent show at the tail end of the second GS race tonight. What an unbelievable battle. Just... for both you guys, let's start with Riley. Walk us through your race because you started towards the front and had to just drive away from Paul and Ken and Kenton and those other guys. You know, how did it feel like those guys breathing down your neck those last few laps, and how intense was it inside the car?
It was scary. With the little gap I had with him before, where there were a couple guys in between, I was actually surprised they got held up as much, but by the time they got there at the end, it was just hoping that I didn't mess up too bad.
Paul, you were chasing down Riley in those last couple of corners, and it got pretty wild there with the other car that was in there, that was Evan Schickel. Walk us through your perspective as you had to get by Schickel before you could attack Riley Thompson.
Yeah, I had Ken breathing down my neck the whole race, putting some insane pressure on me. And then that whole last lap was just, okay, I got to get P2. I got to get one car between me and Ken if I can. And then I got very fortunate due to Evan's misfortune getting loose exiting Oak Tree. Was able to get by him. And then once again, I was fortunate due to Riley's misfortune when he got loose exiting Hog Pen. That was a just crazy run to the line.
Tom, obviously you've won at this racetrack before, but I don't think it was anything quite like what we just saw. You have any questions for these two?
Well, actually, I was going to say for Paul, looking at the championship points, we got 10 of 16 races done. You just now became the winningest driver on the season with 4 over Ken's 3. But actually, Ken has a 4 bonus point lead on you, which is the 4 points deficit between the two of you. So it's down to bonus points right now at the front of this championship. 1, we're going to see for the rest of the races, right? Question mark. And 2, what's the approach now to the final 6 races?
Yeah, I should be able to make the rest of the races. Ken's absolutely slaughtering me in qualifying. It's you get a big advantage with the points because there's not too much spread in the actual race finishing points. So I just got to work on my qualifying and keep trying to be up front. It's going to be an intense end of the season.
All right, guys. Hey, that was an excellent show. Thanks a lot for putting on that show, and congratulations to both you guys for having an awesome run to the end.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Last driver we're going to talk to tonight is Andrew Pilata, the race 1 winner in TCR. Andrew, tonight, that went pretty well for you. The first race, second one was a little bit more of a challenge, especially there at the end. But walk us through both races, especially your race 1 victory and the last couple corners, the last sector of race 2.
Well, I guess I'll start with race 1. So it went pretty well. I mean, really the car had pace, and really I just had to just drive my laps. I mean, with Eric and Elias and some of those other guys getting caught up on each other, that gave me a chance to break away. And then I knew once I could get away from the draft, I wouldn't have to tow everybody behind me. So as long as I just kept putting in good laps, and then I could maintain that gap. So I was happy with that. Second race didn't go so well. I think we got into it a little bit at the end there, and that's racing sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the last couple of corners there. Was that fun or frustration or somewhere between? With it looked like at some point it started off fairly innocently and you guys had a kind of clear run down the back straight. And then at some point it looked like the gloves were pulled off and it was just, all right, let's just steer into each other. Was there much of that going on, or what was the salvage of the last couple of corners there?
I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but it was just with 3 cars like that, all trying to push for the last couple corners. And, coming out of Oak Tree, I kind of figured I was clear. Turned out that wasn't really the case. And then I was kind of fighting for my life as I was getting bounced around between 2 other cars. But thankfully, I didn't take out Christoph in the process. So I guess I'm just happy to get it back with all 4 wheels at this point.
Andrew, quite a show tonight, both in race 1 and in the wild end of race 2. We're watching it now. You kind of getting ping-ponged around there in the final sector. A great show and another race win for you in that 14 car. Congratulations, and we'll see you at Spa next week.
Thanks, guys.
All right, with that, that's going to round up everything tonight. Tom, that was pretty wild. I think at the beginning of the night, we were a little skeptical because the decreased car count in the Grand Sport race, we weren't quite sure what we were going to see, but what we saw was pretty epic, wild racing, which has kind of become par for the course here in recent weeks, especially after the rules changed and it's kind of cleaned up the starts. Still seeing some elbows on action, but we head in 2 weeks to Spa-Francorchamps in Stavelot, Belgium, and that's going to be a totally different style of racing.
Some of the best sim racing or real racing I've ever seen took place tonight. And I can't wait to reshare these tomorrow and have friends watch because it was incredible. And like you said, a very different approach. I think Kyle alluded to it as well. We're leaving the country. We're leaving familiar territory for a lot of these drivers. The car counts may be down a little bit, but when you look at the entry lists, it is not any loss of quality because the heavy hitters are all there. And we're going to move to one of the biggest and fastest and most daunting racetracks in the world, I think, with Spa-Francorchamps, into some unfamiliar territory for a lot of these guys. So it's going to be a big practicing, big practicing opportunity, really, more than anything, moving into that round, and potentially a turning point in the championship at round number 6.
Absolutely want to thank our sponsors again, Radenso Radar Detectors, as well as Lazy Rocket Vinyl Produce, both of which have come on board to help sponsor the entire season of Radenso Sports Car Challenge. Make sure you give them a click in the links in the video description, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at Spa. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow night for Scar's Ferrari Challenge. We'll be headed to Lime Rock Park, the tiny little oval-shaped road course in Connecticut. We'll see you there tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Have a wonderful